Chapter 248. How should she say that? Sangwon's face instantly turned red. Just as Wang said, second uncle and second aunt were her elders. No matter how bad they were, it was not up to her to criticize them. Furthermore, she was saying it in front of her mother-in-law. This made it even more difficult for her to say it. Wang saw her like this and knew that there was no point in continuing to pretend. So she sneered. "You're a smart one. Previously, you kept everything from me because you were sure that I didn't know. Now that I asked you, you guessed that I knew something and said it directly without any hesitation. Sangwon. Sangwon, you're quite scheming." "Mother." Sangwon's expression changed and she suddenly stood up with her head bowed. "Daughter-in-law doesn't know what mother means. Mother, please enlighten me." "You don't know what it means?" Wang sneered. "Enlighten me? I'm embarrassed to say it. Nanny Jiang, you tell young mistress." "Yes," Nanny Jiang replied. She glanced at Sangwon with some pity, before recounting everything that had happened just now. Without waiting for her to finish, Sangwon's face had already changed and she was stunned. Second uncle and second aunt left the village for no reason. They came to Qingzhou and entered the Shi family's business and did such a thing. Not only that, they even went to her mother-in-law to plead for mercy. No wonder her mother-in-law just now? Sangwon felt even more humiliated and her heart turned cold at the same time. Wang had clearly seen Ryo Kuwabara, but deliberately pretended as if nothing had happened and used those words to test her. What kind of person did she think she was? In her heart, what was her daughter-in-law? Sangwon suddenly felt a little disheartened. "What do you have to say?" Wang saw that her expression was sad, but she was in a daze and did not say a word, so she asked faintly. Sangwon had already lost her temper, so how could she still have the mood to deal with her? Hearing this, she smiled bitterly and said, "Daughter-in-law has nothing to say. Mother, do as you see fit. I'm afraid you already have a plan in mind, so why are you testing me again? Even if you're not tired, I am." Wang didn't expect that Sangwon would actually dare to give her a straight answer. She immediately stopped and stared at her. "At my disposal? Aren't you going to plead for him?" Sangwon shook her head. "Daughter-in-law doesn't have the face to beg for mercy. Everything will be decided by mother." "Plead for mercy? I'm afraid he's just asking to be humiliated." Moreover, even if she didn't beg for leniency today, she had already suffered enough humiliation. Why should she say anything more? At this moment, even Nanny Jiang could tell that something was wrong with Sangwon. She couldn't help but glance at her worriedly. Stunned, Wang was even more furious. She was so angry that she laughed and said, Good. She is indeed our Shi family's daughter-in-law, putting righteousness before family, and letting me punish her however I want. If that's the case, then I'll really punish her. When the time comes, you'd better not have anything to say." "Wan Yang definitely has nothing to say," Sangwon replied faintly. "You." Wang was fuming with anger because of her non-resistance and uncooperative attitude. In addition, she was already sullen because of the matter with Ryo Kuwabara. At this moment, she shouted angrily, "Nanny Jiang, get someone to tie up that Ryo Kuwabara and send him to the yamen." "Old mistress." Nanny Jiang was taken aback and hurriedly said to Sangwon, "Young mistress, quickly plead with old mistress and put in a few good words. This matter can't be done like this." Sangwon cast a grateful glance at Nanny Jiang, but she lowered her eyes and didn't say anything. "Nanny Jiang, what are you waiting for?" Wang said coldly. "Inform the shopkeepers of our business to send someone over and report this matter to the prefectural magistrate. Let the prefectural magistrate handle this matter impartially. This matter is handled reasonably, so what are you waiting for?" "Old mistress, you can't do this." Nanny Jiang knelt down and pleaded. "Old mistress, the old slave thinks it's better to wait for young master to return and let him handle this matter." "Get up," Wang said angrily. "Why do I need your kindness?" "Humph." She acted as if nothing happened and didn't find it inappropriate. "What else do you have to say?" In the warm room, Gu Fengzi was also secretly anxious. She couldn't help but scold Nanny Jiang for being meddlesome. If this matter was really brought to court, it wouldn't be able to be covered up outside the household, let alone within the household. It would definitely become a big news in Qingzhou City. Her aunt only cared about being happy now, but she would definitely regret it later. When she regretted it, she would naturally vent her anger on Sangwon for implicating the Shi family's reputation. This crack in her heart wouldn't be so easily erased. When that time came, Sangwon would have to deal with her aunt in a terrible state. How would she have the energy to find trouble with her? Sangwon, who had been silent all this while, raised her head and said, "Mother has her own ideas. Naturally, I will listen to Mother's decision. Daughter-in-law's words carry little weight, and I dare not say much. I will do as Mother says." If she really wanted to handle this matter properly, she would naturally tell her about it the moment she arrived instead of testing her. Since she had tested her, it could be seen that she had a spot in her heart. Sangwon's interest waned and she lost the mood to plead for leniency. Even if she did plead, she would only be asking for humiliation. "Did you hear that?" Wang saw Sangwon's indifferent attitude and became angrier. She looked at Nanny Jiang and said sternly, "Who gave you the courage? Even you are rebelling." Nanny Jiang didn't dare to insist and could only reluctantly agree. She looked at Sangwon awkwardly and left with her head lowered. Only Wang and Sangwon were left in the room. One's face was full of anger while the other was indifferent. Both of them didn't speak, and the atmosphere was strange. Gu Fangzi, who was in the warm room, smiled slightly and put her heart at ease. Although Nanny Jiang took the order and left, how would she dare to really send Ryo Kuwabara to the yamen? She knew her master's temperament very well. If she didn't care about anything in a fit of anger, she would definitely regret it later. She had served Wang Shi for decades, so she naturally knew what she should do to truly treat her master well. Therefore, although she went out, she only stood at the door and looked around, hoping that Shi Fengju would hurry back. She didn't touch Ryo Kuwabara at all. When Shi Fengju arrived at the business and heard the shopkeepers talk about this matter, he was stunned for a moment. Ryo Kuwabara's job was just to guard the warehouse. Shi Fengju didn't usually go to the warehouse, and such a small position didn't need to be reported to Shi Fengju. Therefore, he didn't know that Ryo Kuwabara was actually in his family's business. When he found out that Ryo Kuwabara came in during the period when Gu Fangzi was in charge of the shipping, Shi Fengju knew what was going on and didn't ask. It would be useless to ask. Gu Fangzi was naturally thorough in her work. If this matter was pinned on her, she would naturally have a way to explain it. The matter had already happened, and he wasn't interested in it. Shi Fengju listened to the shopkeeper expressionlessly, and ordered Chang Huan to personally bring Ryo Kuwabara over. Naturally, he couldn't use him anymore, but he couldn't punish him. He could just let him leave and settle this matter privately. As for the deficit, on the surface, he had to say that Ryo Kuwabara had spat out all of it. In reality, he could only take a loss and use his own money to make up for it. Unexpectedly, not long after, Zhan Huan hurriedly ran back and said, "First young master, second old master has left." This servant asked second madam, and second madam said that he went to our residence to plead for leniency. Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows and immediately got up to return to the residence. Shi Fengju thought that he would either go to find Sangwon or Gu Fangzi, so he went to Ning Garden as soon as he returned. Unexpectedly, he heard from Xingji that eldest young mistress had been called over by eldest madam. Shi Fengju knew that something was wrong and hurriedly rushed to the main courtyard. He happened to see Nurse Jiang anxiously looking around the door. "Eldest young master, you're finally back." Nurse Jiang saw that he was relieved and hurriedly went forward to say, "Quickly go and persuade eldest madam. Eldest madam is very angry. I don't know what's wrong with eldest young mistress, but she won't say a single word. She's in a deadlock right now." "Nurse Jiang, don't worry. What's going on?" Shi Fengju was no longer anxious and stopped to ask Nurse Jiang. Nurse Jiang didn't care about avoiding suspicion, and told him everything about the confrontation between Wang and Sangwon. She then sighed and said, "I don't know what's wrong with eldest young mistress today. If she was willing to give in and plead for leniency, eldest madam wouldn't be so angry. Eldest young master, please persuade eldest young mistress later. If eldest madam becomes prejudiced against her because of this, I'm afraid that this residence won't be peaceful in the future." Shi Fengju nodded. "Nurse Jiang, don't worry. I know what to do. When this happened, Wan Yang was still with me in Handan. She didn't know anything about it. My mother shouldn't have tested her like that. Mother clearly doesn't believe her. If she were to give in and plead for leniency, how could she say it? Nurse Jiang was startled and a little stunned. Shi Fengju smiled faintly and walked in. Mother. Shi Fengju's call broke the strange silence in the hall. Wang and Sangwon both relaxed slightly. Wang glared at him unhappily. Wan Yang. Shi Fengju gently pulled Sangwon. Come sit down and talk. Wang's face darkened and she stared at Sangwon without saying a word. Sangwon gently brushed away Shi Fengju's hand and stood still. Seeing her like this, Wang did not feel relieved. Instead, she sneered. Fengju, sit down. She's in a bad mood now. Why would she put our Shi family in her eyes? Sangwon's body stiffened, and she bit her lip without saying a word. Mother, Shi Fengju frowned. I've heard from Nurse Jiang that this has nothing to do with Wan Yang. Why are you venting your anger on her? What did you say? Wang stared at Shi Fengju as if she didn't know him. Are you blaming me? I'll deal with this matter. Mother, you don't have to worry about it. Shi Fengju insisted. Wang Shi only felt a wave of anger rush to her head, causing her to feel dizzy. If it weren't for Sangwon's vanity and dignity, she wouldn't have agreed to let Ryo Kuwabara enter the Shi family's business when he came looking for her. Now that he had done such a shameless thing, could it be that she couldn't even complain a little? Because of this, Sangwon had a conflict with him. Now that his son was back, he even seemed to dislike him for being a busybody. Chapter 249. Wang's eyes became moist and she pointed at Shi Fengju with a trembling finger. You for your wife, you're blaming me. Fengju, are you still my son? For your wife, you really don't care about anyone else? Mother. Shi Fengju was put in a difficult position when he saw his mother like this. What nonsense are you talking about? What good will it do for our family if this matter gets out? How can I not know? Wang said angrily. I'm just angry and I have to vent my anger. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too easy for those with bad intentions? Although this matter has nothing to do with Wan Yang, if she had told her about her uncle's character, Feng wouldn't have taken him in when he came begging. Feng had good intentions, but now, she had to worry about whether or not she would be misunderstood by others. What about you? You're protecting your wife without distinguishing between right and wrong. Isn't she in the wrong for this matter? Gu Fengzi saw that Wang was choking with sobs, and that she was being mentioned. Knowing that she could no longer avoid it, she came out from the warm room and tugged at Wang's arm. Aunt, don't say any more. Calm down. This matter. Don't worry about it. Before Gu Fengzi could finish her sentence, Wang interrupted her angrily. Wang said coldly, stand aside and don't make a sound, lest they take their anger out on you. Gu Fengzi opened her mouth awkwardly and glanced at Shi Fengju and Sangwon before standing silently beside Wang. Shi Fengju didn't even bother to look at her with an inquiring or condemning gaze and said to Sangwon, You go back to Ning Garden first. Cousin, you go back first too. Sangwon saw that her mother-in-law didn't speak, so she bowed to her and turned to leave silently. Gu Fengzi didn't want to leave, so she stood beside Wang and pretended that she didn't hear anything. Shi Fengju wouldn't allow her to pretend to be deaf and mute, so he stared at her and said, Cousin, you go back too. Gu Fengzi could only nod and said softly to Wang, Aunt, if you have something to say it to cousin, don't be angry. Hurry up and leave. Shi Fengju could not bear to see her like that. He suppressed his disgust and his tone became cold. Gu Fengzi's originally cold heart was suddenly filled with bitterness. Smiling slightly, she left in dejection. Wang Shi had nothing more to say to her son about this matter. She couldn't even get angry when she saw the situation. She just kept quiet with a cold face. Gu Fengzi went out and saw Jiang Mama standing outside. She immediately understood that she didn't do as Wang said. Gu Fengzi could not help but feel a burst of anger. She stopped in her tracks and stared at Nanny Jiang. Suddenly, her lips curved into a smile. Nanny Jiang is really loyal to Aunt Wang. I don't know if Aunt will still treat Mama as her confidant in the future. Jiang Mama's expression didn't change. She glanced at Gu Fengzi and said lightly, Madam is impulsive, and the decisions she makes when she is impulsive may not be right. Old slave is loyal to Madam, so how can he do something that she will regret in the future? If Madam punishes the old slave because of this, the old slave will have no complaints. Gu Fengzi sneered and didn't say anything, then left. Mother, Shi Fengju sat down next to Wang and said, I just persuaded Jiang Mama, and she also told me what happened. If this person is sent to the Yamen, it won't be easy to get him out. Aren't you making things difficult for our family by doing this? Making things difficult for our family? Wang coldly snorted. That Ryo Kuwabara is surnamed Sang. What does he have to do with our family? But he is still our family's relative, Shi Fengju said. Wang was speechless. If Ryo Kuwabara was really sent to the Yamen, wouldn't the money be taken from the Shi family in the end? If they didn't take it, they would be too harsh and heartless. If they took it, wouldn't they be slapping their own mouth? This person is too greedy and should be taught a lesson. Otherwise, who knows what worse things he will do in the future? Wang was still angry. Shi Fengju said, If you ask me, I shouldn't have let him work in our family's business. If I was at home, I definitely wouldn't have allowed this to happen. Hearing this, Wang Shi glared at him and questioned, Don't make oblique accusations here. Are you blaming Feng? Let me tell you, Feng didn't do this on her own. I agreed to it. How can you blame Feng for the Sang family's failure? Feng had good intentions, but now she has no one to complain to. Shi Fengju wasn't surprised at all. He sneered in his heart. It seemed like she had completely forgotten his warning. He said to not use his mother to make an issue out of it, and to not use his mother to do things, but she obviously didn't take his words to heart. There's no point in talking about this now. I will take care of this matter properly. Mother, please calm down. Don't look at anything else. For the sake of second uncle and Wan Yang taking care of you and taking care of this family, please don't get involved in this matter. Shi Fengju sighed. Hearing him mention Sang Yufei, Wang's expression softened, and the anger in her heart dissipated. She thought to herself, that's right. No matter what, I can't not give face to my son-in-law who came in third. My son-in-law is now in the Hanlin Academy. With him as a bridge, when my son goes to the capital to take the exam, he can visit 2 or 3 famous scholars. That's not bad. As for Wan Yang, I'll just keep my distance from her in the future. I don't want people to feel vexed. Shi Fengju saw that she was deep in thought, relieved, relaxed and frowning. He guessed what she was thinking and said, Mother, don't blame me for protecting Wan Yang. You really can't blame her for this matter. So I'm the one in the wrong. Wang couldn't help but get angry when she heard this. She immediately shouted, If she had told me about her maternal uncle's conduct earlier, how could this matter have happened today? It's obvious that she's vain and pretentious and deliberately concealed it. Shi Fengju said, Wan Yang is a junior. Even if her second uncle is in the wrong, how can she talk about it? And in front of Mother? Mother, if she suddenly talked about her maternal uncle and aunt's faults without any reason, I'm afraid Mother will be even more disgusted in your heart, right? You've really made things difficult for Wan Yang this time. Moreover, she didn't conceal it. It's just that it's inconvenient for her to talk about it in front of you. I'm very clear about her family's matters. She didn't hide it from me. Wang was speechless for a moment. How could she admit that she was wrong? She coldly snorted and said, Your mouth is getting sharper now. Everything about your good wife is good. You should just protect her. Mother. All right, don't call me. Wang impatiently waved her hand. You can go back. I'm just worrying for nothing. How many years do I have left to live? What am I after? This family property will be yours sooner or later. Even if you're happy and give it all to your wife's maternal family, I can't do anything about it. Get out. Don't annoy me here. Shi Fengju saw that although she spoke in a fit of anger, her tone had obviously softened. He knew that she was just being stubborn. He smiled and got up, bowed to her, and left. In the warm room of Ning Garden, Sang-won was sitting with a frown, deep in thought. When Shi Fengju lifted the curtain and went in, he saw her sitting there. Her slender and frail body seemed a little bleak and lonely for no reason. Shi Fengju suddenly felt a bit uncomfortable. He walked heavily and called out, Wan Yang. You're back. Sangwon turned her head and saw him. She stood up and greeted him with a smile. Wan Yang. Shifengju held her hand and kissed it gently. I'm sorry to have wronged you again. Sangwon felt a bit heavy and uncomfortable. She forced a smile and shook her head. Mother has always been outspoken. It's not a big deal for her to say that. You, on the other hand, wasted a lot of time talking, didn't you? Shifengju chuckled and sat down with her. He simply pulled her into his arms. Sangwon couldn't struggle, and had to comply. How do you know that I convinced Mother? Your mother's son. You know how to explain to her. Of course she'll listen to you. Because of me, I've caused you trouble again and again. As your wife, I'm really ashamed. You're my wife. I should protect you. Why do you have to say that? Wan Yang, you've become estranged from me. Shifengju hugged her arm tightly, as if she would disappear if he loosened his grip. Sangwon's eyes felt warm, and tears almost fell. She blinked her moist eyes and smiled. Fengju if. Before she could finish her sentence, Sangwon stopped. Shifengju was waiting for her to continue, but she didn't finish her sentence. He smiled and asked, if what? And nothing. Sangwon smiled and said, I mean, if only there weren't these annoying things. She originally wanted to say, if there comes a day when you're tired of these things, you don't have to force yourself. Let's part on good terms. But when she was about to say it, she suddenly felt that Shifengju would be angry if he heard it, so she held back her words. Yes. Shifengju sighed and lowered his head to kiss her soft lips. He gritted his teeth and said, I just want to live happily with you. Why is it so difficult? Wan Yang, am I really that good? Can't you live without me? Sangwon's body stiffened. She knew that he was referring to Gu Fangzi. She sighed in her heart. How could a man understand a woman's thoughts so easily? Shifengju continued. I told her before that I don't like her. It's impossible for me to be with her. I can even acknowledge her as my younger sister. Prepare a generous dowry, and let her marry off grandly as the Shir family's young missy. In the future, the Shir family will be her backing, and she won't be bullied at all. But why doesn't she listen to me? Maybe she really likes you. Sangwon smiled casually. Shifengju's deep eyes stared at her. After a moment he smiled and said, You're not telling the truth. Does she really like me that much? I don't feel it. Sangwon sighed softly and said softly, Perhaps she's unwilling to accept it. Unwilling? Shifengju's heart shook violently. He was stunned for a moment. Was he unwilling to accept it? It seemed to be the case. She was too stubborn. Mother's side is fine. Don't worry. As for your second uncle's matter, I'll take care of it properly. Shifengju said again. Sangwon nodded. When I heard that he and second aunt were missing, I felt uneasy. Sure enough, something happened today. No matter what, don't keep them here. Let them go back quickly. Second uncle's deficit. How much is it? Shifengju raised his eyebrows and smiled. Why? You want to pay for him? Chapter 250. What else can we do? Sangwon smiled and sighed. Don't even think about getting back the money that's already in their hands. It's not like we can rob them by force, right? I'll try my best to think of a way. Shifengju smiled and said, Your second uncle really has a good eye. He took all the valuable goods, but I don't know how much he sold them for. The shopkeeper showed me the booklet and estimated that it's worth around 8,000 taels of silver. You don't have to worry about it. Since I've already taken care of it, I might as well take care of it to the end. I'll pay for it. There's no need to distinguish between the two of us. Sangwon was shocked, ashamed, and angry when she heard this. She originally thought that it would at most be around 1,800 taels of silver. She didn't expect it to be close to 10,000 taels of silver. He really wasn't polite. She didn't know what he was relying on. I really don't have that much money on hand. I'll accept this favor from you. Sangwon helplessly smiled and sighed. Shifengju was a bit happy when he saw that she wasn't estranged from him. His wife's business was naturally his business. It was only right for him to handle it. Wan Yang, I have to repay you. Since you've accepted my favor, you have to properly repay me. Shifengyu said with a burning gaze. The hand around her waist couldn't help but move ambiguously. Sangwon wasn't in the mood to play with him at this time. Her heart couldn't help but tremble slightly when she was teased by him. She tightly held his moving hand and said angrily, "I'm not in the mood right now. Stop messing around." "Wanyang." Shifengyu smiled and said, "Why let irrelevant things spoil your mood? I really missed the last time before I left home. How come I don't see it now?" Hearing him mention the day she counterattacked him, Sangwon's face became even redder. She bit her lip and laughed. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Shifengyu laughed. "How am I talking nonsense? I really want to. Thinking back to that day, I really regret it. I really regret it." Sangwon couldn't listen to him anymore. She leaned on his shoulder and didn't raise her head to laugh. Shifengyu hugged her and gently patted her back. He said softly in a low and hoarse voice, "Wanyang, let's have a baby quickly, okay?" Sangwon's body stiffened slightly. She nodded gently and said, "Okay." Ryokuwabira, his wife, and Yinji left Qingzhou the next day. The money they had lost was replenished, and this matter was quickly settled without a trace. Sangwon still went to greet Wangshe every day, and Wangshe treated her the same way. However, Sangwon could clearly feel that Wangshe was estranged from her. From time to time they would bump into Gufangzi. They would exchange polite smiles and nods before passing by. In the past, Sangwon was full of confidence that one day, she would be accepted and liked by Wang. But now she didn't have such a thought. A daughter-in-law was a daughter-in-law. Even if she had thousands of good points, as long as she made the slightest mistake, she would be consigned to eternal damnation. She simply relaxed her heart, and was too lazy to think about it. Rather than wasting her energy on useless things, it was more important to quickly conceive a child. As long as she gave birth to a grandson for the Shi family, with her maternal brother as her backing, no one would be able to bully her again. Ryokuwabira's matter seemed to have caused a huge storm, but under Shifengju's handling, it was quickly buried and silent. Gufangzi originally thought that Shifengju would angrily rush to Peony Park to reprimand her. She even thought about what Shifengju would say, and how she should respond. But after waiting for a long time, Shifengju still didn't take a single step into Peony Park. Sometimes she would purposely show up on his path or meet him in front of Wang, but Shifengju didn't show the slightest reaction. It was as if that matter had never happened. Or rather, he didn't think that it had anything to do with her. But Gufangzi didn't think so. She believed that her shadow was everywhere. It was impossible for Shifengju to not notice, but he didn't ask about it. What did he want to do? 3 days passed in apprehension. One morning, Lan Xiang went to the kitchen to get her breakfast, but it was a servant from the kitchen who came back with the breakfast. She said that Sister Lan Xiang had something to do and left, so the kitchen ordered her to bring it over. Gufangzi rewarded the servant with a few copper coins and sent her away. Although she was a little unhappy with Lan Xiang's behavior of leaving without a word, she didn't take it to heart. When it was almost noon, Lan Xiang still hadn't returned. Gufangzi faintly felt that something was wrong. She ordered the servants in Peony Park to inquire about it. Gufangzi would never have dreamed that the servant would bring back news that Lan Xiang had left. Servant Li, who is in charge of training and assigning servants to the inner courtyard, has taken away all the servants in the manor who are over 18 years old and haven't found a husband to marry. There are a few young stewards in the manor who have just reached the age of marriage, so they've all been taken away. Miss Lan Xiang has also been taken away. She said that the vacancy will be properly filled in the next 2 days. Bang! With a crisp sound, Gufangzi smashed the teacup in her hand into pieces. She got up and ran towards the main courtyard. Lan Xiang was actually taken away by someone without making a sound. At this moment, Gufangzi finally realized how important Lan Xiang was in her heart. She had served her for so many years, but she had disappeared just like that. Who was it that would be so ruthless? Gufangzi didn't even think about it, and pinned the blame on Sangwon. She rushed into the main courtyard and knelt beside Wang, crying, "Aunt! Auntie, please help me, please help me." Wang was startled by her actions and hurriedly pulled on her arm. "What's wrong? What the hell happened? Don't panic. Tell me slowly. As she spoke, she hurriedly ordered Xiao Chun, Xiao Li, and the others to help her up. Gu Fangzi turned around and refused. She raised her tear-filled face and tightly clutched Wang's clothes as if she was clutching at a life-saving straw. Aunt. Lan Xiang is gone. Lan Xiang was taken away by someone. She's the only servant I like. We've been together for so many years, and I can't bear to part with her. Please, Aunt, help me save her. Lan Xiang? Wang was stunned and hurriedly asked. Who is so bold? Who dares to forcibly take Lan Xiang away? Gu Fangzi shook her head and continued to cry. She intermittently recounted what had happened in the morning and what the servants in her courtyard had heard. Wang Shi was so angry that her whole body trembled. She said, I know that the older maidservants in the manor are taken out to marry other men. But I didn't expect Madame Li to have the guts to forcefully take away your eldest maidservant. How dare she? Wang was furious and was about to call someone to summon Servant Li when Gu Fangzi tugged at her clothes and said with tears in her eyes, Aunt, I'm afraid it's useless to ask Servant Li. No matter what, Madame Li is just a servant. How could she have the guts to do that? Wang raised her eyebrows and became angrier. She slammed her palm on the tea table and stood up angrily. Let's go to Ning Garden. If Servant Li didn't dare, then there was naturally someone else who dared. Other than Sang Wan, Wang couldn't think of a second person in the manor who would dare to do such a thing. The group of people arrived at Ning Garden with a murderous aura. Sang Wan had just finished dealing with the manor's daily affairs and had just returned. She hadn't even taken 2 sips of the tea in her hand when she saw a servant hurriedly come in and report, First Madam is here. Sang Wan, Mama Li, Luya, Xingji, and the others went out to welcome her. Wang had never come to Ning Garden before. At least, she had never come here after she married into the manor. Usually, she would send a servant to pass on a message. The most important thing was to send Mama Jiang. This was the first time she had come here. Sang Wan suddenly had a bad premonition. When she saw Gu Fangzi beside Wang, whose eyes were red and tear-stained, her heart skipped a beat. Mother, if there's anything you need, you can just ask someone to send your daughter-in-law over. I didn't expect you to come. Sang Wan smiled and went forward to help Wang. Wang brushed away Sang Wan's hand with a cold face and walked straight inside without stopping. She said coldly, You're the mistress of the household and the head of the household. I can't accept your courtesy. Everyone was shocked. Mama Jiang, Xiao Chun, and the others who had followed her and looked down calmly as if they hadn't seen anything. However, the expressions of all the servants in Ning Garden changed. Sang Wan was even more shocked. For a moment, she was shocked, ashamed. She didn't know what had happened to make Wang so angry. Young mistress, quickly go in. There must be some misunderstanding. Don't be anxious or angry. If First Madam asks you anything, just explain it properly, okay? Otherwise, it'll be an outsider's fault. Mama Li saw Sang Wan's face turn red and white in a daze. She hurried forward to help her, and said in a low voice, Yes, thank you for your advice. I know. Sang Wan felt warm in her heart, and hurried to keep up. Mama Li beckoned Luya over and ordered, Go personally and find a suitable person to ask First Young Master to come back. Yes. Luya hurriedly nodded her head and ran off. When Sang Wan entered the room, Wang was already sitting on the chair. Gu Fangzi and Mama Jiang were standing on her left and right. Xiao Chun and the others were all sitting at the side with their hands down. The large hall was silent. Sang Wan only brought Mama Li and Xingji into the room. The rest of the servants were waiting in the corridor in silence. Mother, I don't know why Mother is here today. Sang Wan went forward and curtsied. You're asking me? First, ask yourself what good things you've done. Wang sternly said, Wan Yang, the matter with your second uncle is already in the past. Let's treat it as if nothing happened. Do you agree? Sang Wan said, Mother, you're a magnanimous person. Wan Yang is very grateful. Of course I agree. Is that so? Wang sneered. If that's the case, why did you turn around and wait for an opportunity to retaliate? Fang told me before that she was afraid that you would suspect that she did something because of this matter. She was afraid that she would make you unhappy. I patted my chest and assured her that Wan Yang had always been virtuous, polite and broad-minded. She wasn't a muddle-headed person, and I told her not to worry. I didn't expect that you would really do that. These past few days, I saw that you didn't say or do anything. I thought that you had really thrown this matter aside. Who knew that you already had a plan? Lan Xiang has served Fang, or since she was young. The relationship between the two of them isn't as simple as a master and servant. You forcefully took Lan Xiang away. Isn't this clearly cutting off Fang Er's arm? She's the only person you like. Why do you have to do this? Chapter 251. Mother, what are you talking about? Wan Yang doesn't understand. Sang Wan looked at Wang in confusion. She was really confused by her mother's words. Lan Xiang? Lan Xiang disappeared? Sang Wan sensed something and said in surprise. How could a living person disappear? Could it be that she went to play in the garden? Older sister. Gu Fangzi went forward and pulled on her sleeve, begging. Without your permission, how could servant Li have the guts to take Lan Xiang away? I beg you, please return Lan Xiang to me. I beg you. Gu Fangzi cried and pushed, causing Sang Wan to feel dizzy. She frowned and said, what exactly happened? First, tell me clearly. Gu Fangzi could only cry and plead for leniency. How could she explain herself clearly? Wang became angrier and said hatefully, Fang Er is already so humble. Wan Yang, no matter how angry you are, you should be appeased. Mama Li couldn't stand it anymore, and gave a look to Xingji. The two of them went forward and forcefully pulled Gu Fangzi away. Mama Li smiled and said, young Miss Gu, don't be anxious. There's no use in being anxious. This matter needs to be explained clearly. Mama Li smiled at Wang and said, young miss, don't talk about young mistress. Even the old slave is confused. What happened to Lan Xiang? I'm afraid you're also not clear about this matter. Don't talk too much and stand to the side. Wang still gave Nanny Li some face. Although her face was still cold when she spoke to her, her tone softened a little. Mama Li knew that she couldn't speak anymore. Otherwise, when her young miss's temper flared up, she would lose all her face. Moreover, since she had said so, it was clear that she would not believe anything she said. If she saw that she was helping young mistress, she might even be angrier. Yes, Mississippi. Mama Li nodded and stepped aside. Young mistress. Nanny Jiang saw that Gu Fangzi had been pulled to the side and wasn't crying as loudly as before, so she briefly explained what had happened. Then she said, young mistress, quickly send someone to chase after Lady Li and Lan Xiang. After all, Lan Xiang has served Miss Biao for so many years. If you suddenly send her away, no one would be able to accept it. Sang Wan was immediately startled. What Madame Li was doing was the usual practice of the household over the years. After Madame Li reported it to her, she didn't ask any questions and simply nodded to let Madame Li handle it. But she did not expect Lan Xiang to be on the list. If she knew, she naturally wouldn't allow it. On second thought, Madame Li certainly didn't have the guts. Then who else could it be? Shifengju? Sang Wan's mouth suddenly became bitter. If it really was Shifengju, then Wang and Gu Fangzi really didn't find the wrong person to cause trouble for her. Wasn't Shifengju doing this for her sake? In the end, she was the root cause. If she didn't believe it, she would look at Nanny Jiang. Didn't such a mature and steady person also think that this was her doing? Still waiting for her to call for help? Wang sneered. She's eager to stall for time. I've already sent someone to intercept her. Wan Yang, what else do you have to say? If it weren't for your explicit hint, how could Madame Li have the guts? She dared to intercept them halfway. Sang Wan's lips moved, but she was speechless. She was disappointed to find that she had nothing to say. Mother-in-law was becoming more and more mature. Explicit hint? Those words were used very well, and she had no way to refute them. Moreover, she didn't want to refute them. Even she knew that Madame Li certainly didn't have the guts to do so. There must be someone behind her. Was she supposed to push all the blame onto Shifengju? Not to mention whether mother-in-law would believe her or not, her actions would only increase her disgust and anger. As a wife, criticizing her husband was definitely not something mother-in-law could tolerate. Moreover, Shifengju did it for her. She wouldn't clear her name and push him away. I have nothing to say. Wang sneered. Wan Yang, you're really getting bolder. Don't think that just because Fengju dotes on you, you can be so petty. Which family's eldest daughter-in-law is as intolerant as you? Sangwon's hands clenched and her body trembled slightly. Wang Shi's words were like a sharp knife stabbing into her heart, causing her to bleed profusely. Old mistress. A middle-aged woman came in from the outside and quickly paid her respects to Wang Shi. She said guiltily, I don't know which village Madame Li took her people to. This servant didn't have time to stop them in the city. I've already sent people to chase after them. Gu Fangzi, who was originally weeping with her head lowered, suddenly raised her head and looked anxiously at Wang. Aunt. Don't worry, Aunt will definitely bring Lan Xiang back. Wang frowned and waved her hand. Leave. If you can't even handle such a small matter, what's the use of having you here? Quickly keep an eye on her. Once she's brought back, bring her directly to Ning Garden. The woman hurriedly responded and left the room. Wang turned her head and stared at Sangwon. If Lan Xiang is fine, then it's fine. But if not, Wan Yang, tell me how I should punish you. Wan Yang will follow mother's teachings. How mother punishes Wan Yang will accept it. Sangwon said softly. Wang coldly snorted. Don't give me that half-dead look. As the mistress of the house, you can't tolerate others. Not to mention that you can't tolerate others, you even use such underhanded means. What kind of ability is that? Our Shi family will never tolerate a daughter-in-law with such a character. Wan Yang, you should reflect on yourself. Sangwon's face was as white as wax paper, and she did not make a sound. She knew that her mother-in-law was already being polite with her words. If she did not have a brother who came in third, her words would not be so light. At the very least, she would be grounded. Gu Fangzi had the same thoughts as Sangwon. Gu Fangzi did not feel good in her heart. Reflect on herself? That was too easy on her. She had gotten rid of the only confidant by her side without a word. Who knew what kind of person she would get for her? Her aunt was so angry and kept saying that she would seek justice for her. But she only put her down lightly and dismissed her with the word, reflect. How unfair. Aunt, don't blame sister. Second old master-in-law's matter was indeed my fault. I shouldn't have let him enter the Shi family's business in a moment of soft-heartedness. I have no objections if sister blames me. Who asked me to be a busybody? I should bear the consequences for being a busybody. But Lan Xiang is innocent. As long as Lan Xiang can return to my side, this matter will be over. Gu Fangzi said with tears in her eyes. Sangwon was so angry that she felt dizzy. She stared coldly at Gu Fangzi and said, I know my own uncle's character very well. No matter how muddle-headed I am, I will not blame sister for this matter. Sister, you keep saying that I blame you, but that's strange. How did sister see that from? As for Lan Xiang's matter, when Lady Li returns, she will naturally give sister an explanation. Sister, please calm down. Gu Fangzi was also angry and said with tears in her eyes, If sister doesn't blame me, why did you make a move on Lan Xiang? Sister clearly knows that Lan Xiang is my confidant. Without her, it's like breaking one of my arms. Sangwon said faintly, I've said it before. This matter will be known when Lady Li returns. Sister, instead of arguing with me, why don't you save your energy and wait for Lady Li and Lan Xiang to return before questioning her properly? Gu Fangzi was suddenly at a loss for words, and was slightly stunned. She then looked at Wang with grievance. Wang also did not expect that Sangwon would dare to treat Gu Fangzi like this in front of her. She could not help but feel even more annoyed and said coldly, Enough. Stop arguing. When Lady Li and Lan Xiang return, how many things can you not ask? Wang said with a slight sneer. Wan Yang, you're becoming more and more like the mistress of the household. Sangwon raised her eyes and looked directly at Wang. She said frankly without any fear. Thank you for your praise, mother. Wan Yang actually feels that she did not do well enough. Let's not talk about whether this matter was Wan Yang's doing or not. Wan Yang wanted to punish a servant of a concubine. What kind of big deal is that? Why did mother have to be alarmed? What did you say? Not only did Wang's expression change, but Gu Fangzi also widened her eyes in shock. She only felt that her heart had been ruthlessly stabbed. Concubine, concubine in front of her. Wasn't she just a concubine? Sangwon still said faintly, as the mistress of the household, don't mention punishing a servant of a concubine. Even punishing a concubine is a trivial matter. Mother, isn't that the case? Wang stared at Sangwon as if she did not recognize her. Her lips moved, but she found that she could not say a single word to refute. If she said it out loud, it would make her seem unreasonable. Wasn't it just a concubine? It was normal for the mistress of the household to order around the concubines. As long as she was willing, it was fine even if the concubines had to sleep on the floor in her room and wait on her all night. In some families where the mistress of the household was jealous and mean, the mistress of the household did not need a servant to wait on her. Everything had to be done by the concubines themselves. Even the master of the household could not say anything wrong. Gu family's younger sister, Sangwon's face darkened, and she said in a cold voice, "What have I done to you? Have I mistreated you in any way? You've even been exempted from paying your respects. What else are you dissatisfied with? You often run to mother and cry for mother to make a decision. You've overstepped your boundaries. Tell me, how should I punish you?" When Sangwon said this, there was complete silence. Mama Li and Xingji naturally felt that their anger had been vented, but Wang and Gufangzi were stunned. Wang suddenly felt that her embarrassment had turned into anger. What was going on? As a mother-in-law, she had angrily run over to her own daughter-in-law and make her lose face for a concubine of her son. This did not seem to match the situation, but Gufangzi was even more shocked and angry. She lowered her eyes and gritted her teeth. Her palms were almost crushed. Sangwon, Sangwon. She clearly knew that this was her biggest weakness, but she had to mercilessly poke at it. Her heart was not just a little vicious. Fong, is not a normal concubine. She is. Before Wang could finish her sentence, she felt bored and shut her mouth. A concubine was a concubine. Even if she was her niece, so what? When a small sedan entered the Sher household, her identity was first and foremost her son's concubine. The first person she should serve was her son's legal wife. This was a principle that had not changed since ancient times. If this principle was broken, this household would not be far from chaos. This was something that Wang did not want to see and could not allow to happen. Chapter 252. Aunt. Gufangzi originally wanted to ask Wang to stand up for her, but she didn't expect her to shut her mouth before she finished speaking. Gufangzi was secretly disappointed and immediately stood up with tears in her eyes. Aunt. Don't say any more. Fong doesn't want to make things difficult for you. Fong didn't know the severity of the matter. Elder sister is right. Elder sister, I only did this in a moment of desperation. I definitely wouldn't dare to overstep my boundaries. Elder sister, please investigate clearly. If elder sister isn't willing to forgive me, then you can punish me however you want. Gufangzi gritted her teeth and simply went forward to pull Sangwon's dress and knelt down. She wailed, "Elder sister, please forgive me. Elder sister, please don't be angry. In the future I won't dare to do it again." Feng. This matter originally started when Wang reprimanded Sangwon and Sangwon contradicted her. Now that Gufangzi was kneeling and crying, it clearly showed that Wang was losing face. It clearly told her that her daughter-in-law's words were reasonable, and it was her, the mother-in-law, who was wrong. Wang thought that Gufangzi had no choice but to complain. Of course she wouldn't blame Gufangzi. The anger in her heart was naturally directed at Sangwon. She sternly shouted at Nanny Jiang and the others, "Hurry up and help Miss Gu up. What are you waiting for?" Nanny Jiang and the others hurriedly agreed, and went forward to help. Mama Li and Xingji also went forward to help. Gufangzi had to put on a good show. Since she had already knelt down, wouldn't it be a loss if she didn't put on a good show? Her hands clung tightly to Sangwon's skirt, unwilling to let go. If Sangwon wanted to escape, how could it be so easy? Mama Li's back was facing Wang. She rudely pried Gufangzi's fingers away and pulled her up. "Sister, I really know I was wrong. I beg you to forgive me this time." Gufangzi hated Mama Li to death in her heart, and tears streamed down her face. "Enough. Wang suddenly stood up and said with a cold face, Wan Yang, good. You're so capable. You've got great means. But there's no need to teach a concubine a lesson in front of me. Fenger, don't cry. What's the point of crying to death in front of him? For concubine? I'll make the decision to promote her to a second wife. I'd like to see what other excuses you have. Gu Fengzi was overjoyed. Her delicate shoulders shook slightly as she sobbed softly, making her look even more pitiful. Sangwon's heart felt as if it had been split into two halves. One half was cold, and the other half was furious. Second wife. Mother, you can make the decision. Wan Yang has nothing to say. Sangwon suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. So all this time, she had been working hard in the wrong direction. She originally thought that as long as she carefully won over her husband, she would be able to gain a firm foothold and avoid the tragedy of her previous life. However, she neglected her mother-in-law. In the end, Gu Fengzi took advantage of this loophole. It's useless even if you have something to say. It's not up to you to make decisions in this family. Wang said angrily. Mother, Wan Yang, you're all here. Shi Fengju strode in from outside while the room was in chaos. Do you have ears or what? You came so quickly. Wang saw that her son always appeared at the wrong time, so she was very unhappy. Gu Fengzi was originally sobbing, but when she saw him, she quickly stopped crying and lowered her eyes to reduce her presence. She was afraid that Shi Fengju would take his anger out on her and blame her for instigating discord. In all honesty, this time, she really only wanted Lan Xiang back. She couldn't imagine what she would do without Lan Xiang. More importantly, Lan Xiang knew so many things about her. Who knew if she would have a change of heart after marrying a man? If her man wanted to please Sangwon, and Lan Xiang helped him, then it would be terrible. She had not even had time to give her a word of advice. Shi Fengju didn't answer. He turned his head and said, Come in. Yes. Following the soft and timid voice of a young girl, a servant girl wearing a light green vest and a white silk skirt walked in. It was Lan Xiang. Lan Xiang. Gu Fengzi's heart was greatly relieved. She immediately ran towards Lan Xiang and reached out to hold her hand. Lan Xiang, you're finally back. Eldest cousin, thank you. Gu Fengzi's expression was so happy that her heart was about to jump out. Originally, she only had some suspicions, but now she was certain that Lan Xiang was deliberately taken away by Sangwon. Otherwise, why would her eldest cousin bring her back? This was called the evils brought on by oneself. This time, she didn't have to do anything and she made a mistake first. She was so arrogant that even her eldest cousin couldn't stand it anymore. Wang was stunned. Sangwon was stunned. Mother Jiang, Mama Li, and the others were all stunned. They didn't expect things to take a turn for the worse. The most shocked person was Sangwon. She knew that Shi Fengju must have asked someone to take Lan Xiang away. Now he brought her back. What did he want to do? Before everyone could recover from their shock, something even more shocking happened. They saw Lan Xiang take 2 steps back to avoid Gu Fengzi's hand. She lowered her head and said awkwardly, Young miss. Her obvious resistance and attitude made Gu Fengzi's expression change. Lan Xiang, what's wrong with you? Move to the side. Shi Fengju said to Lan Xiang. Lan Xiang quickly responded with a yes and moved to the side. Shi Fengju didn't even look at Gu Fengzi's shocked expression. He stepped forward and smiled at Wang. Mother, this matter was originally ordered by me. Shouldn't I come? Everyone was shocked. Gu Fengzi stared at Shi Fengju in disbelief. Her expression was as hurt as it could be. Ever since he came in, he didn't even look at her. She thought that the matter with Ryo Kuwabara had passed since he didn't look for her. Who knew that he still remembered it, and never intended to let her go? Take Lan Xiang away from her. That was his most direct reply. Actually, she didn't have to take Lan Xiang. What made her even more disappointed was his attitude. He clearly didn't want to talk to her anymore. What did you say? Wang raised her voice in disbelief. You were the one who ordered Servant Li to take Lan Xiang away. Shi Fengju didn't care and said indifferently, Yes, Lan Xiang isn't young anymore. It's time for her to get married. As for my cousin, I'll just pick a good one to serve her. Lan Xiang was also willing to do this. Servant Li left in a hurry, So she didn't have time to go back and say goodbye to my cousin. This isn't a big deal. My cousin will naturally know about it later. Wang's heart felt stifled. She lost the mood to argue with her son. What was there to argue about? Why should she interfere when her son was dealing with a servant? If the mother and son quarreled because of this, it would become a joke if word got out. However, Wang Shi was unable to vent her anger, which made her very angry. No matter what, Lan Xiang is still someone by Feng Er's side. How can you take her away without saying a word? Wang said angrily. Shi Fengju smiled and said, Mother, Lan Xiang is also a servant of our residence. Can't I deal with her? Besides, she was willing to do this. If you don't believe me, you can ask her. She has served my cousin for so many years. I think my cousin would also want to see her have a good home, right? Gu Fengzi couldn't listen to anything else. There was only one thought in her mind. Cousin really doesn't want to talk to me anymore. He really doesn't want to talk to me anymore. He doesn't even want to question me. He is so cruel. Lan Xiang met Wang's angry gaze and knelt down timidly. She lowered her head and whispered, This servant. That's enough. Wang waved her hand in disgust and interrupted her. She stood up with a sullen face. Her eyes were cold as they swept over Sangwan. Finally, she said to Shi Fengju, I don't care how you want to deal with this matter. But I'm telling you, I want Feng Er as my daughter-in-law. I've already decided. I'll choose an auspicious day for you to marry her as a co-wife. What? Your mother wants an obedient and agreeable daughter-in-law to serve by her side. This request isn't too much, right? Since Lan Xiang was brought here by her son, whether it was against her will or not, she wouldn't dare to go against her son's wishes. Wang understood this even if she didn't care about matters. She didn't want to hear those words. As a mother, she had the right to make requests for her daughter-in-law. Whatever kind of daughter-in-law she wanted, her son had to obediently marry her. Gu Fengzi slightly raised her eyes and looked at Shi Fengju. She didn't have the confidence she had before, but her stubbornness didn't decrease. His attitude didn't seem to be important anymore. What was important was that this was her wish since she was old enough to understand things. After so many years, she had to fulfill it. As for whether he liked her or not, whether he was willing or not, it didn't matter anymore. What she needed more was the identity of the young mistress of the Shi family, and the mother of the Shi family's son. That was enough. Sangwan's face turned pale, and she remained silent. Shi Fengju didn't say anything either. He only sighed and said gently, I'll send you back first. Wang saw that her son didn't reject her outright, and felt that she had regained some face. She glanced at Sangwan, and let him accompany her out. Gu Fengzi was startled and walked out without looking at Lan Xiang, who was kneeling on the floor. The room suddenly quieted down. A strange silence surrounded everyone, almost suffocating them. Sangwan stood there in a daze. She glanced at Lan Xiang and ordered, Take her away. All of you can leave too. I'm a little tired and want to rest for a while. Mama Li looked at her worriedly and ordered someone to take Lan Xiang away. She then helped her into the warm room. No matter what, you're the official daughter-in-law of the Shi family. Even if she's promoted to a second wife, she's still inferior to you. Please don't take it to heart. Perhaps old mistress just said it casually. When her anger subsides and no one mentions it again, this matter will be over. Nanny, Sangwan smiled gratefully and said, Actually, Mother has always had this idea. How could you not know? It's just that she gave me some face in the past because of my face. Now that she's angry with me, she naturally can't care about it. Since I've already said it, how can I change my mind? Nanny, don't worry. It's nothing. I can take it. Mammy Lee sighed softly and said after a moment, That vixen is good at flattering people. Your filial piety is in your heart. You always make proper arrangements so that Miss can live a comfortable life and don't have to worry about anything. Unlike her, you are filial in your mouth. You shouldn't have talked back to Missy today. Missy's temper is a little reckless. If she wasn't angry, she wouldn't have said that. Chapter 253. Sangwan smiled bitterly. Actually, I didn't expect things to turn out like this today. It's just that Gu Fangzi kept biting and pestering me endlessly. I was so angry that I lost my head. Mama Li smiled and said, "No matter, there's still young master. She doesn't like young master, so what if she's a co-wife? Didn't you see that after young master came in he didn't even look at her? If young master still had some feelings for her, he wouldn't have punished Lan Xiang. It's obvious that she's not satisfied and has long since worn away this little bit of affection." Sang Wan's heart skipped a beat, and she felt slightly uncomfortable. Although Shi Fengju didn't pay attention to Gu Fangzi, he didn't object to his mother-in-law's words. It seemed that he was just like her, unable to do anything about his mother-in-law. That's right, she was his mother after all. How could he resist her to the end? Although this was what she thought, Sang Wan still felt aggrieved. Mama Li saw that her complexion wasn't too good, so she helped her lie down and covered her chest with a thin silk blanket before leaving. Sang Wan was actually secretly hoping that Shi Fengju would come back to see her after sending Wang back. Even if he couldn't change anything, at least he would say a few good words to her. Who knew that after waiting for a while, she still didn't see his shadow? She fell asleep in a daze. When she woke up, the room was slightly dark, and Shi Fengju was still nowhere to be seen. Sang Wan was slightly disappointed. She sat up in a daze for a moment before letting out a long sigh. She tidied up her hair and got off the Kong bed. She secretly mocked herself. What was she angry about? What was she hoping for? Wasn't today's result very clear from the beginning that this was a possibility? She had originally classified this possibility as the worst possibility, and had also thought about how to face it. Since she couldn't avoid it, instead of worrying about this matter, it was better to put it aside and live her life comfortably. This life was different from her previous life. Her life and status were guaranteed, so what else did she have to worry about? Whether she was a co-wife or a concubine, what difference did it make? Although this one was difficult to deal with, most of the servants and stewards in the estate were on his side. What could she do to him? Since he had already shed all pretense of cordiality today, he had nothing to worry about in the future. Since she had achieved her goal, it would be fine if she could live a peaceful life. However, if she continued to scheme against him, he would not be so easy to bully. Sang Wan thought about it for a while and felt carefree. Smiling slightly, she put the matter aside and stopped thinking about it. When Mama Li came in to report that eldest young master still had some unfinished business and did not need to wait for him for dinner tonight, Sang Wan did not seem to mind. She only faintly replied, "Got it." She then asked what dishes the kitchen had prepared. He ordered the servants to leave a few dishes for Shi Fengju and instructed them to serve the meal as usual. Mama Li saw that she looked much better after resting for a while. Thinking that she had figured it out, she was secretly happy for her. Although that was what Sang Wan thought in her heart, she was still a little worried. In today's situation, no matter how busy Shi Fengju was, shouldn't he have come back earlier to say a few words to her? She did not expect that after dinner, there would still be no trace of him. Sang Wan could not help but feel a bit stuffy. Out of sight, out of mind, she took a bath early and went to bed. She did not know when Shi Fengju had come back. She only knew that while she was sleeping, someone held her in his arms and sighed softly. She did not know what he said, but he lowered his head and gently kissed her face. Sang Wan did not open her eyes to pay attention. She subconsciously leaned into his arms and fell asleep. The next day, Wang sent Mama Jiang over to convey Wang's words. Mama Jiang wanted her to prepare the estate. She wanted to hold a big banquet and announce to all her relatives and friends that Gu Fangzi had been promoted to a co-wife. When Mama Jiang said this, the expressions of everyone in Ning Garden changed. No one expected that when the eldest madam was angry, she would do anything. Luya had always been loyal to Sang Wan. Seeing this, she trembled with anger. If it was not for the fact that she could not afford to offend Mama Jiang, she would have already asked her. Unexpectedly, Mama Jiang's next words almost made Luya faint. Mama Jiang glanced at her and said, "The eldest madam also said that Miss Luya has been with the eldest young master for a long time. Taking advantage of the fact that they are married together, she will be concubine Lu." What? Luya lost her composure and cried out. Seeing that everyone's gazes were on her, some of them were unjust and some of them were envious, Her face flushed red. She waved her hand and said anxiously, Nanny Jiang, can I trouble you to inform old mistress? Luya is unlucky and cannot afford to be concubine Lu. Whoever wants to be concubine Lu can be concubine Lu. In short, I won't be concubine Lu. Mama Jiang was a little embarrassed to say this in front of Sangwan, but she did not dare to not understand what her master told her. She smiled and said, Miss Luya, what are you talking about? This is the eldest madam's favor. Many people can't get this kind of blessing. Seeing that Sangwan did not say anything, Mama Jiang could only say, You are the eldest young mistress's maidservant and have served the eldest young master. You should be happy about this. The eldest young mistress must be happy for you. No, I don't want to. Luya was so anxious that her face flushed red, as if she was about to cry. She shook her head and hands in a panic and refused. Seeing that she did not seem to be faking it, Mama Jiang was stunned. The crowd was also stunned. Only Sangwan felt a little uncomfortable, but she felt a little warm. This matter had happened so long ago. If Mama Jiang had not mentioned it today, Sangwan would have forgotten about it. If Luya had changed her mind and pretended to be embarrassed and reluctantly agreed to this matter, Sangwan would not have said anything. She could only take it as suffering a loss in silence. However, Luya did not do that. She was still the innocent little girl who had followed her from the Sang family. She was a little girl who was wholeheartedly loyal to her. The wealth and splendor of the past year had not blinded her eyes or blinded her heart. Luya, what are you doing? Mama Li could not help but frown when she saw this. Luya was her goddaughter, and she was already the young master's woman. Getting the status of a concubine was already the best ending for her. This one-track-minded girl. Although she had a deep relationship with the eldest young mistress, she should not be so emotional at this time. Moreover, if she became a concubine, she would still be the eldest young mistress's right-hand woman. Why should she refuse? If she refused, she was afraid that someone would implicate the eldest young mistress in this matter, and cause the eldest young mistress to have a reputation of being unvirtuous. She was not helping the eldest young mistress, but harming her. Mama Li was secretly anxious and couldn't help but look at Sangwan. At this time, as long as Sangwan opened her mouth and said a few words, she believed that Luya would definitely give in. After all, Luya refused because of the master-servant relationship between her and Sangwan. She was also Luya's godmother, so it was inconvenient for her to speak up. The moment she spoke up, she would be siding with her goddaughter. Sangwan was actually in a difficult position. She was very clear about Luya's intentions, but she could not speak up. She could not say no, nor could she say yes. The outcome would depend on Luya's own abilities. Luya was really quick-witted in this situation and said, Nothing happened between the eldest young master and I. I'm willing to be a servant for the rest of my life, to serve the eldest young master and eldest young mistress. As for being a concubine, I've never thought about it. Mama, please report to the eldest young mistress that I appreciate the eldest young mistress's kindness, but forgive Luya for not being able to comply. What did you say? Mama Li cried out in shock. Back then, clearly. Mama Jiang was also dumbfounded. She thought to herself, what's going on these 2 days? Why is the residence so unpeaceful? It was clearly such a simple matter of passing on a message. Why did it involve so many accidents? Not to mention the eldest young mistress, even she felt a headache. Miss Luya, this is not a joking matter. I'm not joking, Mama Jiang. Luya hurriedly said. Actually, at that time, I was only serving tea in the study. Later, the eldest young master fell asleep. If he didn't tell me to leave, I didn't dare to leave. So I fell asleep on the chair. The next morning, the eldest young master woke me up, and then I came back. Everyone was speechless for a long time. Mama Li opened her mouth and said weakly, You silly girl. Then why didn't you say a word after that? Everyone thought that you had become the eldest young master's concubine. Luya's face turned red. She said shyly, This matter, no one asked me in person. How could I talk about it? Mama Li was stunned again. Everyone thought that it was a matter of course. Of course no one would ask her, and she really couldn't talk about it for no reason. But even so, Mama Lee still felt that this matter was too absurd. Sangwon laughed inwardly. It was rare for this girl to be so quick-witted. She had fooled the two astute mamas. Luya, Sangwon finally spoke. This matter is the eldest young mistress's grace. I won't force you. Think about it carefully. No matter what, I will treat you the same in the future. Luya was her dowry maid. No matter what, she had to open her mouth. Eldest young mistress. Luya heard this and knelt down in front of her. She raised her head and looked at her with a determined and calm expression. This servant doesn't dare to claim connections. This servant is willing to serve eldest young mistress and eldest young master for the rest of my life. Forgive this servant for not accepting eldest young mistress's kindness. Eldest young mistress, please grant this servant's wish. Luya and Sangwon had always had a good relationship. Everyone was used to seeing her smile. Today, when she suddenly became serious, they were a little surprised. Her expression and tone showed that these words were from her heart. Otherwise, with her relationship with Sangwon, even if she accepted it, Sangwon would not be unable to tolerate her. So what if she became a concubine? In the end, she was still a maid. The only thing she could rely on was Sangwon. Unless her brain was flooded with water, she would not betray Sangwon in the future. Mama Zhang's expression suddenly became a little ugly. She felt that eldest young mistress's temper was getting worse. She had just quarreled with eldest young mistress. Now, eldest young mistress wanted to promote Luya. Although it was partly because she was angry with her, there was no harm in her agreeing to this matter. When eldest young mistress saw that she obeyed her, she might feel a little guilty and write off the previous matter. She was good. Not only did she not help to persuade Luya, she even faintly suspected that she was supporting her. Chapter 254. However, since Sangwon had already said so, as a servant, it wasn't appropriate for Jiang Mama to intervene in the affairs of the eldest young master's courtyard. Thus, she looked at Sangwon with a calm expression. Nanny Jiang, Sangwon looked at her. Since this lass is so insistent, may Nanny Jiang report back to old mistress and thank her for her kindness? This meant that she was rejecting her. Jiang Mama glanced at Sangwon and nodded. Since young mistress has said so, old slave will report back to first madam later. Then about Miss Biao. Sangwon smiled faintly. Mother didn't see me when I went to pay my respects today. I actually had something to report to mother. I haven't been feeling well these past few days, so I want to go to the farmstead to rest for a few days. I'm afraid I won't be able to share mother's burden. However, since mother has said so, I don't dare to refuse. I'll leave Mama Lee and Xingji to help in the fu. The stewards of the fu are all middle-aged and experienced. With them around, there won't be any mistakes. As for me, I'm still young and have never handled such an important matter. If I stay, I'm afraid I'll only add to the mess. Jiang Mama was startled and subconsciously looked at Mama Lee meaning, what's going on? Nanny Lee was also taken aback. Sangwon had never mentioned anything about going to the country house to recuperate, and this was the first time she heard it from her. However, she was one of Sangwon's people. If she didn't know about this matter, then it was obvious that Sangwon had blurted it out at the last minute. Then it was clear that she was deliberately opposing First Madam. Mama Lee was well aware of the relationship between the two, so how could she let Jiang Mama see any clues? Her expression was calm and unperturbed, as if she had already heard about it from Sangwon. Jiang Mama sighed inwardly and nodded with a smile. Since that's the case, old slave will report back to First Madam. Oh yes, may I know when young mistress is preparing to set off? It's today, Sangwon said with a smile. I'll have to trouble Mama to inform Mother that if Mother is free, I'll go and bid farewell. Otherwise, I won't disturb you. Old slave will report to First Madam right away. Nanny Jiang hurriedly responded. It was better to leave this place as soon as possible. Sangwon nodded and watched her leave. Mama Lee dismissed the maidservants, leaving only Luya, Xingji, and Hongyi by her side. Ma, are you really going to stay at the farmstead? Sangwon smiled and said, That's right, Mama. I'll have to trouble you to take care of the residents. Sangwon admitted that she could not personally handle this matter for Gufangzi. Since he couldn't change it, he might as well avoid it. Out of sight, out of mind. Mama Lee's lips moved, but in the end, she didn't say any words of persuasion. She sighed softly. Since that's the case, Ma'am should stay there for a few days. May I know which farmstead you're going to? After staying there for a few days, Old Slave will send someone to bring you back. The residents can't be without you. Mama Lee knew that she was annoyed by this matter, and planned to bring her back once this matter was over. Otherwise, when Gu Fengzi coaxed First Madam into handing everything to her, it would be too late for Sangwon to return. This matter wasn't something to throw a tantrum about. She thought that after a few days, when Mayam's anger subsided, she would be able to think clearly. Sangwon only smiled and didn't say anything. Not long after, Xiao Chun arrived and said that First Madam invited Ma.M over. Sangwon instructed Luya and the others to pack a simple luggage, and casually brought 2 maidservants along. As she expected, Wang's expression was very unsightly, and it became even more unsightly when she came in. Daughter-in-law pays respects to mother. Sangwon went forward and curtsied, then stood up gently. Her pink neck was slightly lowered, her eyes were gentle, and her expression was tranquil. She was gentle and elegant as usual, but there was still something different. Wang didn't speak, so Sangwon didn't speak either. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were silent. You're going to stay at the farmstead? After a while, Wang asked indifferently without any emotion. Yes, I want to go today and specially came to bid farewell to mother. Sangwon nodded. Humph, Wang sneered. Why do you want to go to the farmstead? Are you uncomfortable living in this residence? Are you feeling uncomfortable physically or mentally? If it was in the past, Sangwon's face would have turned snow white when she heard Wang's harsh words. But now, she didn't have that caution. What was the use of being careful? She still couldn't change anything. Sangwon could only pretend that she didn't understand the meaning behind Wang's words and honestly replied, My body is a little uncomfortable. So, I ask mother to allow daughter-in-law to go to the farmstead to rest and recuperate. Wang bumped into a neither soft nor hard rebuff and almost fainted. She was so angry that her chest felt stifled. Go, she said with some anger. Being uncomfortable is not a small matter. You should take good care of yourself. Don't worry and just stay there. After a while, I will send someone to pick you up. What she meant was, if I don't send someone to pick you up, you don't need to come back. Sangwon didn't take these words seriously and obediently replied, Yes. If possible, she didn't want to come back. But if she wanted to come back, no one could stop her. Wang saw that her expression was indifferent and didn't have the slightest intention of repentance. She waved her hand impatiently and said, All right, you can leave. Sangwon bent her knees and left. Old mistress, Nanny Jiang saw Sangwon leave and went forward to persuade her. This isn't good, right? If young master finds out, what can he do? Wang said angrily. You've seen it for yourself. It was Wan Yang who wanted to go. I wasn't the one who forced her to leave. If Fengjiu, that brat, blames me for this, then he isn't my son. Nanny Jiang didn't dare to make a sound. Wang thought about it and became even more annoyed. Wan Yang's temper is getting worse. Does she really think that I can't control her? Ever since she married into the family, Fengjiu has only doted on her for so long, but I haven't seen anything happen to her belly. Now that Fengjiu has a concubine, she's throwing a tantrum. This is the Sang family's upbringing. Old mistress. Old slave can see that young mistress isn't such a person. Please calm down. When Nanny Jiang saw that Wang Shi wanted to settle the score again, she hurriedly smiled and tried to persuade her. Young mistress is truly filial to you. Even this old servant can see that. How can old mistress not know? Actually, there's something that old slave doesn't dare to say. Wang looked at her and said, If you don't dare to say it, then don't say it. You must be trying to plead for her. Old mistress is wise. Hearing Wang say that, Nanny Jiang laughed and said, Miss Gu has been close to you since young, but she married into the family as a concubine. You've been protecting Miss Gu all the time. It would be strange if young mistress didn't have any thoughts about it. Although young mistress's words yesterday were a little harsh, they weren't wrong. She's the legal wife. Even if she really punished a concubine's maidservant, it wouldn't be a big deal. If old mistress were to bring Miss Gu to question her, where would young mistress put her face? Moreover, young mistress wasn't the one who did it. One couldn't help but waver when she heard that. But how could she admit it? If she admitted it, wouldn't it mean that she was in the wrong? Sangwon was so stubborn. At this time, even if it was to fight for her dignity, she would never admit that she was in the wrong. That's enough. Why are you saying that too? Wang said angrily. It's not like Wan Yang doesn't know about Fong Er's relationship with our Shi family. How can Fong Er be treated as an ordinary concubine? How can I bear to do that? Since Wan Yang is my daughter-in-law, shouldn't she consider my feelings as a mother-in-law? She's clearly making things difficult for me on purpose. Wang was immediately convinced by her own reasoning and added in a more serious tone. That must be it. Nanny Jiang was completely speechless. The matter between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was a difficult matter to deal with. Nanny Jiang felt that she shouldn't have said too much. But since she had already spoken, she couldn't help but say again. Old slave knows that you dote on Miss Gu, but this way, there will be a day when Miss Gu and young mistress will be at odds with each other. How long can you protect Miss Gu? Young master's heart is now all on young mistress. Wang sighed softly and said, how can I not know that? But Fong Er is so pitiful and is my sister's only child. How can I watch her suffer? That's why I made the decision to promote her to a second wife. When she gives birth to a son for Fengjiu, she will have someone to rely on for the rest of her life. I will teach her well and mediate between her and Wan Yang. Nanny Jiang wanted to ask if it would be too late by then. But seeing how confident old mistress was, she held back her words silently. Sangwon simply packed her things and called for a carriage. She brought along Luya, a young maidservant, and 2 women who did rough chores, and left the residence. Young mistress, enjoy yourself. After a while, old slave will send someone to bring you back. Mama Li smiled warmly as she sent her to the carriage. She then reminded Luya, serve young mistress well and don't be lazy. Luya quickly agreed. Sangwon also smiled and said, I'll leave the residence to Nanny. Nanny can focus on handling the affairs of the residence. When it's time for me to come back, I'll naturally come back. Mama Li nodded and smiled. She sighed in her heart as she watched the carriage go further and further away. When she turned around, she let out a long sigh. Shi Fengjiu came back in the evening and didn't see Sangwon. He was surprised and asked. Mama Li was stunned and quickly said, young mistress went to Donglu Manor to recuperate. Young mistress said that she told eldest young master yesterday. Does eldest young master not know? She went to the manor? Shi Fengjiu was slightly startled. He didn't answer Mama Li's question and quickly asked, who did she bring with her? Did she bring everything? Mama Li said, Luya, 2 mature and capable young daughters-in-law, and a young maidservant went with her. Old slave and Xingji didn't have enough time to pack their things. Tomorrow, old slave will have someone send it over. Shi Fengjiu smiled slightly and shook his head. Then he nodded. Have someone send it over tomorrow. Prepare more food and necessities. Don't let her feel wronged. She's unhappy, so it's good for her to go and relieve her boredom. Nanny Li was confused by Shi Fengjiu's words. From what Shi Fengjiu had said, did young master agree? But why was he so surprised earlier? Did eldest young master know about this beforehand or not? Eldest young master, don't worry. Old slave understands. Naturally, he won't let young mistress feel wronged. Mama Li hurriedly nodded in agreement. She thought for a moment and probed. Today, eldest madam ordered that the residence will promote Miss Gu to a co-wife. She needs to arrange it well. Before young mistress passed away, she ordered old slave to take charge of this matter. Eldest young master, what do you think? Chapter 255. Shi Fengjiu's eyes darkened and he said indifferently, don't worry about it for the time being. I'll talk to my mother. Mama Li was secretly happy when she heard that and quickly agreed. She then asked a servant to fetch water for Shi Fengjiu to wash his face, hands and clothes. She also asked someone to go to the small kitchen to see how the food was being prepared. Without Sangwon around, Ning Garden became much quieter. Mama Li and Xingji were not talkative people, but when Luya was around, they loved to chat and laugh. Shi Fengju had nothing to say to Mama Li after he finished talking about his business, and he had no intention of interacting with the servants. In the past, when Sangwon was around, the two of them would chat and laugh. But today she and Luya were not around, so other than quietly doing their work, no one dared to make a sound. The room was filled with tension for no reason. Shi Fengju also felt very uncomfortable. When it was time to eat, he dismissed the servants. Although there was a large table full of dishes, he was the only one who ate a bowl and chopsticks. Even if it was a delicacy, he could not taste anything. He ate carelessly and went to the study room. At night, he was too lazy to come back. He sent someone to inform Mama Li before he went to rest in Ning Garden. After Sangwon left, Wang kept an eye on Ning Garden. When she found out that Shi Fengju had stayed in the study room that night, she was unhappy. His wife was not going back, so he was not going back either? When they went to pay their respects the next day, Wang did not even say anything. She directly said to Shi Fengju, "Fengju, you're not blaming mother, are you?" Wan Yang said that she wanted to go to the country house to recuperate. It wasn't me who chased her away. At that time, Nanny Jiang was also there. If you don't believe me, you can ask Nanny Jiang. Nanny Jiang did not know whether to laugh or cry when she saw old mistress looking at her with the intention of letting her testify. Old mistress was becoming more and more like a child. She was the eldest young master's mother. How could the eldest young master doubt her words so easily? What's more, I'm her confidant. If eldest young master suspects her, why would he believe me? Moreover, how could a master need a servant to testify for his words? That's right, eldest young master. It was indeed eldest young mistress who wanted to go. It had nothing to do with eldest madam. Nanny Jiang could only say this since she was called out. Shi Fengju didn't know whether to laugh or cry, just like Nanny Jiang. It wasn't that he didn't have any resentment towards his mother, but after hearing her words, he didn't know whether to keep his resentment or disperse it. Shi Fengju felt that he was really unlucky. In the past, he had resisted this marriage. It was his mother who had used his late grandfather and father to insist on it. Now that he had seen Gu Fangzi's true colors and had fallen in love with his wife, he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. However, his mother was always inexplicably interfering. If his mother deliberately made trouble for his wife without reason, he would naturally protect his wife and deal with his mother. However, the problem was that his mother didn't actually hate his wife, but she always made things difficult for him for various reasons. In this, Gu Fangzi played a significant role. How could Shi Fengju have the heart to blame his mother? Mother, Shi Fengju helplessly smiled and said, "How could I be so muddle-headed as to blame you?" Wan Yang went to Donglu Manor to stay with me after discussing it with me. Naturally, it was her own idea. When Wang heard her son say this, her heart was slightly relieved. She nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, "I'm relieved that you think this way. That study is cold and cheerless. There isn't even anyone who cares about you. Don't go there tonight. If you don't want to go back to Ning Garden, then go to Peony Park." Mother. Shi Fengju's expression slightly darkened. "What's wrong with that?" Wang said with conviction. "Feng Er was originally your concubine. Your wife isn't here, so it's only right for her to serve you. Besides, she'll soon be promoted to a second wife. This is your mother's decision. Don't tell me you don't want to." After Wang finished speaking, she stared at her son without blinking. She didn't miss any of the subtle expressions on his face, as if she wanted to see through his thoughts. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that it was impossible. He, Shi Fengju, would never keep a scheming woman by his side. She even used his mother repeatedly. He sent Lan Xiang away to give her a warning. Unexpectedly, she didn't care at all. Instead, she made his mother say such words. "Since you don't object, then this matter is settled. I'll ask someone to look at the date and pick an auspicious day to do it." Seeing that her son didn't speak, Wang made the final decision. "Not for now," Shi Fengju said with a smile. "In 2 days, I'll be going to Hangzhou to participate in this year's Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce. Let's talk about it later." The Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce was held once every 2 years. Almost all the big merchants from all over the country gathered in Hangzhou to display and sell their unique goods. There would also be many new and novel goods at the Chamber of Commerce. It was one of the most important business gatherings in the country. At the Chamber of Commerce, not only could one expand one's network, it was also very beneficial for one to grasp the trends of various industries at present and for a long time in the future. For a long time, the head of the Sher family would attend and at the same time, bring back many business contracts. This even affected the direction of the Sher family's business in the next 1 or 2 years. Of course, Wang Sher had heard of it. Fine, then we'll talk about it when you come back. Seeing that her son didn't immediately refuse, Wang felt much better. She didn't want to argue with him at this time. Mother, don't spread this matter out first. We'll talk about it when I come back. Mother, can you promise me? Sher Fengju asked again. Although Wang was a little unhappy, she reluctantly nodded. Yes, you must listen to Mother when you come back. When have I not listened to Mother? Sher Fengju smiled. Wang Sher sneered. Don't try to play dumb with your mother. If you're really filial, then you'll listen to Mother on this matter. AI, you have to be more careful on the way. I think it's better to take the carriage on the official road. Let the shopkeeper arrange it first. It doesn't matter if you arrive a little later. Thinking about what happened to him on the canal last time, Wang felt a burst of fear and trepidation. Don't worry, Mother. I'll listen to you. This time, I won't board the boat. I'll take the carriage. Sher Fengju smiled. That's more like it. Wang nodded in satisfaction. Not long after Sher Fengju left, Gu Fangzi came to pay her respects with a yellow face and a dispirited look. The forced smile on her face looked as if it would fall at the slightest touch, but she still insisted on it. Seeing this, Wang's heart ached for her. Seeing an unfamiliar servant behind her, Wang sighed in her heart. She waved her hand and smiled. Quickly sit down. Fengju has already agreed to make you his second wife. You should be happy to hear this news, right? As expected, Gu Fangzi's body shook and she raised her head in disbelief. Big cousin agreed to make her his second wife. Did her aunt hear wrongly, or did she hear wrongly? Silly girl. Why would your aunt lie to you? Wang laughed. In 2 days he'll be going to Hangzhou to participate in the Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce. When he comes back, he'll be able to settle this matter. Gu Fangzi's joy disappeared again. When the Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce returns, it would be at least a month later. At that time, who knew what kind of changes would occur? Big cousin was clearly delaying, and only her aunt would believe him so easily. Thank you, Aunt Wang, for everything you've done for Fang. Gu Fangzi lowered her eyes and said softly with a faint smile on her face. Of course, she could not show her disappointment and dissatisfaction in front of Wang. There's no need to thank me, Wang Sher sighed. In Aunt's heart, you and Yumei are both Aunt's most beloved children. Sigh, when Aunt thinks about the man Yumei married, Aunt feels really sad. If you don't live well, how can I live with myself? Unfortunately, the daughter of a concubine whom she had never taken seriously had a good marriage. Gu Fangzi's heart was moved by her words, and she felt a little disappointed. This is great, it's finally complete. Wang said with a satisfied smile. In the future, live well with Fengju. Aunt knows that you're a good child, and you definitely won't disappoint me. In the future, your cousin Yumei will still need you to take care of her. Gu Fangzi's heart was suddenly enlightened. So there was a reason why her aunt helped her so wholeheartedly. This was great, her aunt would definitely help her to the end. After all, everyone in the household knew that her cousin did not get along well with Sangwan. Cousin Yumei is the same as my biological sister. If there's anything I don't understand, I still need her to teach me. She should be the one taking care of me instead of me taking care of her. Aunt Wang, if you say that, Fang will feel very apologetic. When Wang heard her say that, it was obvious that she placed Shi Yumei in a very high position. Her heart was filled with joy and she nodded with a smile. You're right, the two of you are like biological sisters and must support each other in the future. Seeing that the two of you are doing well, Aunt Wang is relieved. Gu Fangzi quickly made a solemn vow to express her determination. After thinking for a while, she suddenly said, I wonder when big cousin will leave for Hangzhou? Wang smiled and said, he said it would be within the next 2 days. I'm afraid it will be soon. Gu Fengzi nodded and smiled. I remember that the Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce starts on the 22nd of June every year. I think he should be leaving in a few days. Wang smiled and said, You have a good memory, it seems so. Oh, I remember now, you seem to have gone with Fengju once before. Aunt Wang. Gu Fengzi smiled and took advantage of the situation to say, It'll be more convenient for cousin to have someone to take care of him along the way. Why don't I accompany cousin on this trip? Wang was elated and nodded with a smile. You're right. With you by his side, I can be more at ease at home. Moreover, the two of them can cultivate their relationship on the road. When they return from Hangzhou, wouldn't it be perfect for them to hold the ceremony to promote her as his wife? Gu Fengzi had expected Wang to agree. When she heard that, she was overjoyed and quickly said, Aunt Wang, don't worry, I'll definitely take good care of big cousin. It's just that big cousin, he probably doesn't want to see me. Although he didn't blame me for what happened to second old Master Sang. I know that he's still suspicious of me. Otherwise he wouldn't have punished Lan Xiang. Although I'm sad about Lan Xiang, as long as big cousin's anger is appeased, I feel that it's worth it. I just don't know if he still blames me. Chapter 256. When Wang heard her mention this matter, she couldn't help but feel disgusted. She waved her hand and said, That won't happen. I'll make the decision on this matter. You go back and pack your luggage. Just wait to leave. He has already dealt with Lan Xiang, so what else is there to be angry about? If he still doesn't calm down, then his temper will be too big. Gu Fengzi was secretly happy when she heard this. She quickly stood up and respectfully agreed. So what if big cousin didn't like her anymore? Since she was able to make him die for her in the past, as long as she had the chance to be by his side, she believed that she would still have a way to make him like her. People's feelings could change. They could change for the worse, but they could also change for the better. It all depended on whether or not she was diligent, and whether or not she knew how to fight for it. She had already lost once. This time, she would definitely learn her lesson. What's the servant girl's name? Is she suitable for you? Wang nodded and asked. Gu Fengzi took advantage of the situation and said with a smile, She's very sensible and obedient. If it's possible, I also want to ask for someone from Aunt's side to accompany me to Hangzhou. That way, she can take care of big cousin more carefully. When we return, I'll naturally return her to Aunt. These words were exactly what Wang wanted. Having a servant girl by her side to help take care of her son was naturally the best. Of course. Wang smiled and said, Then have Xiao Chun come with you. There's no need to return her. If you like, she can serve you in the future as well. Wang Shi treated her maidservants and older female servants very well. How could she give them away just like that? Even if it was her own son, she couldn't easily give away her servant girl, let alone an outsider. Gu Fengzi knew her thoughts. She knew that she just blurted it out and didn't mean it. If she agreed, then she would be a fool. She quickly smiled and refused. How could I dare to take the servants by Aunt's side? Each and every one of them has been trained by Aunt to be so outstanding. If I take them back, they will be better than me. I'm not willing to take them. You servant girl. You still dare to look down on Aunt's people. Wang couldn't help laughing. She was secretly relieved. In fact, she regretted it as soon as she said that. You still haven't told me what your name is. Wang brought up the topic again. Gu Fengzi was slightly embarrassed. She forced a smile and said, Her name is Lan Xiang. Orchid Fragrance. Wang's face darkened. After a while she asked, Who gave her this name? Actually, she didn't need to ask. She had already guessed. They said that eldest cousin named her. Gu Fengzi was still a little embarrassed. She quickly smiled and said, It's just a girl's name. It doesn't matter what you call her. Wang Shi sighed and said, Since you think so, I'm glad to hear that. Good child, you're the sensible one after all. You don't throw a tantrum for no reason. As long as it's big cousin's decision, Feng Er will always agree. Gu Fengzi said softly. Wang sighed and nodded. She waved her hand and ordered her to leave. Fengju is too much. He's already an adult, but why is he doing things so inappropriately? After Gu Fengzi left, Wang couldn't help but complain to Nanny Jiang. After sending away one Lan Xiang, he sent another Lan Xiang. How could he do that? Wasn't he deliberately trying to annoy her? Nanny Jiang didn't know how to answer. She forced a smile and stammered. Wang didn't insist on an answer. She just felt more and more depressed. She instructed Nanny Jiang to call Shi Fengju to see her when he returned. Shi Fengju only returned to the household after the sky had darkened. When he heard that his mother was looking for him, he went over without changing his clothes. "You've just returned? Why are you so late again?" Wang glared at him and said sourly, "Your wife isn't in the household. Do you not want to come back?" Shi Fengju didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What was wrong with his mother recently? Why did she even mention Wan Yang? "Aren't we going to Hangzhou in 2 days? That's why I had to make arrangements here. That's why I stayed a little longer." He then said to Wang, "Mother, what's wrong with you recently? You wouldn't talk like this in the past." Wang was startled by his words. Good, it's the other way around. Why did this sentence sound so familiar? Wasn't this what she liked to say to her son? Since when was it his turn to say it? "What nonsense are you saying? Your mother is fine. From what I see, you're the one who's not right. Have you decided on when to set off?" Wang glared at him and said. Shi Fengju answered, 2 days later. As he spoke, he smiled and asked, "Is there anything that mother would like to have? I'll bring it back for you." "There's no need." Wang smiled and said, "There are 2 people I want you to take with you. You can't refuse." 2 people? Shi Fengju was slightly startled. He seemed to understand his mother's meaning. "It's not good if you don't have someone to take care of you when you're away. Let Feng, and Xiao Chun follow you. It's good to help you take care of your food and daily life. I'll be at ease at home." "Mother." Shi Fengju frowned and flatly refused. "There's no need. I was just about to tell mother about this. I'm going to Donglu Manor tomorrow night, and bring Wan Yang the day after tomorrow. Wan Yang has been taking care of me all the way back from Handan. I'm used to her taking care of me. Moreover, Hangzhou's scenery is good. I can take her out to relax. Cousin and Xiao Chun should stay at home to accompany mother." Wang was suddenly startled. You want to take Wan Yang?" "Yes," Shi Fengju said. "Mother, are you relieved now?" "Relieved? In theory, she should be relieved. After all, there was someone taking care of her son." However, Wang felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. After a while she said, "Then why didn't you say so earlier? You made me worry for nothing." "I've been busy these past 2 days. Didn't I tell mother now?" Shi Fengju smiled lightly and said, "All right, I'll take it as your son being forgetful and confused for a moment. I apologize to mother. Mother, you should be satisfied now, right?" Wang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. No matter how uncomfortable she felt, there was nothing she could say. She smiled and waved her hand. Forget it. You can go. No matter what you say, you're right." Although Wang was a little unhappy, her son's mood was more important. Since he said that Wan Yang was taking good care of him, Wang could only let it go. Shi Fengju smiled and said a few words before leaving. Over at Peony Park, Gu Fangzi's smile didn't disappear from her face ever since she returned. She personally packed the luggage and was very meticulous. She knew that this was an excellent opportunity. If she didn't grasp it well, it would be hard to come by in the future. Jiangnan's scenery was picturesque. The 2 of them had a common past and had walked this path together. Without Sang Wan by her side to dampen their spirits, Gu Fangzi believed that people's hearts weren't made of iron. Seeing that she had followed and taken care of him without any complaints, even if he didn't immediately change his mind and treat her like before, he would definitely loosen up. When they returned, the 2 of them would definitely ease up a lot. At that time, as long as she instigated Sangwon slightly, she would definitely do the wrong thing like she did in the past. In the end, eldest cousin would still belong to her. In order to win Shi Fengju's favor and make him remember the past, Gu Fangzi put a lot of thought into choosing clothes, accessories, and jewelry. The master and servant were busy for half the night before they finished packing and went to bed. The sound of Lan Xiang's even breathing could be heard under her feet, but Gu Fangzi was too excited to sleep. In the dead of the night, she couldn't help but think of Lan Xiang. If Lan Xiang was here, she would definitely be as excited as she was and would have endless things to say to her. This one, after all, was far from enough. Gu Fangzi didn't expect that when she went to pay her respects to Wang the next day, she would hear such a shocking turn of events. Her face turned pale in an instant. Her shocked expression made Wang feel distressed and guilty. This is all my fault. If I had known, I wouldn't have asked Fengju first. Since he has brought Wan Yang to serve him, you should stay at home and properly prepare for the wedding. Wang smiled and patted her hand gently. Gu Fangzi was so angry that she almost scolded. She clenched her fists tightly and finally managed to hold it in. And big sister has always been attentive. With her taking care of me, Aunt Wang can rest assured, and so can I. As long as cousin is happy, I have nothing to worry about. This has nothing to do with Aunt Wang. If Aunt Wang apologizes to me, how can I accept it? Gu Fangzi forced a smile. Wang saw that her face was clearly trying to smile, but it was uglier than crying. She didn't know how upset she must be, but she still comforted her so reasonably. She was extremely touched and patted her hand gently. Sighing, she didn't know what to say. In Donglu village, Sangwan and Luya had already been gone for 2 days. The environment here was quiet and secluded. It was a favorite place for the Shi family to stay on a hot summer day. All the furnishings in the house were cleaned by professionals, so it was convenient for Sangwan and her servant to stay. Behind the village, there was a large forest of camphor trees. Sangwan loved the quietness and the special fragrance in the air here. She often spent half a day here with Luya. On the day she arrived, Sangwan had secretly hoped that Shi Fengju would come to look for her. Even if she didn't want to go back with him, it would at least show that he had her in his heart. Unexpectedly, 2 days later, Shi Fengju was nowhere to be seen. Instead, Mama Li sent someone to deliver tea leaves, a tea set, pastries, fruits, incense burners, pancakes, blankets, cushions, and other household items that she was used to. Sangwan was grateful, but she couldn't help but feel wronged and annoyed. Her expression became a bit gloomy. Luya understood Sangwan the best. Seeing this, she hurriedly smiled and comforted her. Young mistress, don't be sad. Young master must be busy these days. Otherwise, he would definitely come to see young mistress. Who doesn't know that young master treats young mistress the best? Did she really reveal her emotions so obviously? The little lass saw through her at a glance. She even took the initiative to comfort her. Sangwan suddenly felt a bit confused and embarrassed. But then she thought, what was she angry about? So what if Shi Fengju didn't come to see her, and didn't care about her feelings? Wasn't that right and proper? Why did she have to ask him to come? Wasn't she thinking too highly of herself and him? Why did she have to bring trouble to herself for no reason? With this thought, she felt a bit better. She glanced at Luya and said with a smile, what nonsense are you talking about? How can you tell that I'm sad? It's not easy to come out and relax. The scenery here is so good, and there's nothing to worry about. Why don't you just stay here and think too much? I'm not stupid. Chapter 257. It's good as long as young mistress isn't sad. Luya paused for a moment before smiling. The farmstead is indeed not bad. Let's walk around. I heard from the aunties that the back of the mountain is even better. There are many fish and prawns in the river, and they all taste very good. We'll get someone to catch them. Sangwan saw that Luya's eyes lit up as she spoke, and knew that she had restrained her for too long. She smiled and said, there's no Mama Li to control the rules here. If you want to go into the water yourself, it's not impossible. Look at you. You're so eager but you don't dare to say a word. When did I become so scary in your eyes? Luya was overjoyed when she heard this and quickly smiled. Young mistress, you've always been very good to this servant. There's no need to be scared. Young mistress should also go. Let this servant catch 2 big fish for you to stew tonight. Sangwan laughed when she heard this. She changed her clothes and brought a few people with her to the back of the mountain. The stream was cool and refreshing, the mountain forest was lush and green, and the mountain flowers were gorgeous. From time to time, all kinds of birds would fly by or flap their wings as they flew through the forest. Their melodious cries sounded from time to time, ethereal and clear. Sangwon only felt that her heart was open. Her depressed and resentful heart for Shifengju gradually calmed down. Who knew that just as she calmed down, Shifengju came. In the afternoon, she and Luya were strolling in the camphor forest. Occasionally, they saw a bush by the forest with golden flowers. It was bright and dazzling. Sangwon pointed at it and smiled. I didn't notice this flower yesterday. It's blooming so lively. Let's pick a few and bring them back to put in a vase. The one who answered her was not Luya, but the voice that she didn't know whether to be happy or angry. Wanyang, do you like it? If you like it, I'll pick some for you later. Sangwon's body stiffened. She almost thought that there was something wrong with her ears. She stood there in a daze and didn't move, nor did she turn around. Shifengju sighed and gently walked forward. He hugged her tightly from behind and stuck close to her. Wanyang, don't you like me? Sangwon's lips moved, but she still didn't turn around. Her body didn't move either. She asked softly, why are you here? Of course I'm here to pick you up. Shifengju chuckled in her ear. Smelling the faint fragrance on her body, he couldn't help but gently kiss her neck. His warm breath blew on her neck, cool and hot at the same time. It had been a long time since she felt the itchy sensation. She used to like it, but now she hated it. Sangwon gently tilted her head in an attempt to avoid him. Finally, she moved her feet and broke free from his embrace. She pulled a little distance away from him and turned around to say, you're so considerate to come and see me when you're busy. I'm enjoying my stay here, and I don't want to go back yet. If there's nothing else, you can go back. Otherwise, if you're tired, your mother will blame me for not taking good care of you. Shifengju didn't hug her again. He stood with his hands behind his back and said with a smile, I'm not used to not having you around. Mother didn't blame you for not taking good care of me. Sangwon couldn't help but get angry when she heard this. Her face sank and she said angrily, didn't you leave Mama Li and Xingji here? Are they not considerate people? When I was here, you didn't ask me to do everything by myself. Why, you can't bear to see me comfortable for a few days. I just came out and you're saying this. After saying this, she sneered slightly and said, I don't know how to serve people. Anyway, you'll soon have someone you like to serve you. I won't disturb you. Just let me have a few more days of peace. Shifengju's eyes narrowed slightly. He just looked at her and didn't say anything. Under his gaze, Sangwon suddenly felt a little sad for no reason. Her heart was slightly cold and her eyes were wet. She hurriedly blinked her eyes and turned her face away. Shifengju saw her like this and his heart softened. He didn't have the mood to tease her anymore. He sighed with a smile and went forward. He forcibly pulled her into his arms and leaned her on his shoulder. He gently patted her body and said softly, Silly Wanyang, I'm just joking with you. Are you angry? I've been busy for the past 2 days, so I didn't come to see you. I've always been thinking about you in my heart. When have I ever forgotten? Don't be angry, okay? Sangwon bit her lip and held back her tears and sobs. After a while, she said softly, I don't want to go back. No, we're not going back. Shifengju hurriedly said. Sangwon was startled and pushed him. I just want to be alone. Why are you staying? This place is not far from the city, but it's not near either. Isn't it tiring for you to live here and run back and forth every day? Moreover, when Mother decides on something, that day will come sooner or later. Mother will only be angrier if you do this. Wanyang, don't say it. Sangwon raised her hand and gently covered his mouth. She said in a low voice, You don't have to feel guilty towards me. I know you were sincere when you promised me, but who can predict the future? Now that there's such a sudden change, I really don't blame you for going back on your words. Mother has said it so clearly in front of everyone. If you refuse again, let alone you, even I will be put in a difficult position. It's not a good thing to disturb the family because of this matter. Forget it. I only have one request. She can't take care of the family. Otherwise, I'm willing to live here for the rest of my life. I didn't want to talk to you about this. Shifengju found it funny. He took her slightly cold hand and kissed it gently. Wanyang, don't talk about this matter again. This matter has nothing to do with you. It's my matter. No matter what decision I make, it has nothing to do with you. Do you understand? Sangwon shook her head and said with a bitter smile. Fengju, you're thinking too simply. Mother won't think that way. She won't think that way either. She and Mother still have feelings for each other. For Mother's sake, what can you and I do? Her words struck a chord in Shi Fengju's heart. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't bear to hurt his mother's feelings, why would he do this? And Gu Fengzi wouldn't dare to be so presumptuous. Wan Yang, it's enough that you have the heart. Take good care of your body and give birth to a son for me as soon as possible. That's more important than anything else. Don't think about it anymore, okay? Sangwon didn't say anything. Her heart was at a loss. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow morning, we'll go to Hangzhou together. Hangzhou's scenery is picturesque. Let's go slowly and enjoy the scenery along the way. Don't let irrelevant matters disturb your mind, Shi Fengju suddenly said with a smile. Go to Hangzhou? Sangwon was stunned. She lifted her head from his embrace and didn't understand what he meant. Shi Fengju smiled and said, Yes, the Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce is about to start. I've already arranged for the shopkeepers to rush over and make preparations. When we arrive, it'll be almost ready. I've been busy with this matter these past few days, so I didn't come to see you early. Otherwise, how could I bear to see you sad alone? Sangwon suddenly had an indescribable feeling in her heart. When she heard the last sentence, she defended herself. I'm here to relax, I'm not sad. Yes, you're not sad. I'm the one who's sad, okay? Shi Fengju smiled and said. I've arranged everything. Don't worry and follow me tomorrow. Wan Yang, are you afraid that the journey will be tiring? Tiring? No matter how tiring the journey was, it was better than being cautious and vigilant every day in the household. Those days were truly tiring and exhausting. I'm not afraid. Sangwon shook her head gently. It's good that you're not afraid, Shi Fengju smiled and said. In the future, I'll bring you along whenever I go out, okay? Our Shi family's business is spread all over the country. If we go out one by one, more than half a year will have passed. Sangwon was startled and understood Shi Fengju's meaning. It was inconvenient for him to refute Wang's words, but he had to use this as an excuse. When he brought her along, he could do whatever he wanted. Naturally, no one would be able to stop him. Fengju. Sangwon's gaze was a little complicated. Shi Fengju felt gratified. He knew that she would understand his meaning even if he didn't say it. One day, Mother will understand my intentions. She won't be willing to make things difficult for me. Shi Fengju pulled her into his embrace and whispered in her ear. Wan Yang, I only want to protect you for the rest of my life. Sangwon was moved. She unconsciously wrapped her arms around his waist and leaned into his embrace without saying a word. Shi Fengju was encouraged, and his heart was filled with joy. The familiar soft and fragrant touch made him let go of her slightly. He held her face and lowered his head to kiss her tender lips. The two finally buried the hatchet, and their mood brightened. After strolling in the forest for a while, they returned to the farmhouse. Shi Fengju instructed Luya to pack up the things that they needed to take with them. When Luya heard that she would be going to Hangzhou with Shi Fengju and Shi Fengju the next day, she was overjoyed and went to pack up happily. Not long after dinner, Shi Fengju pulled Sangwon to take a bath and wash up before returning to the room. The two had not seen each other for many days. In the hibiscus tent, there was no lack of lingering passion. After that, they fell asleep in each other's arms. There was enough time. Shi Fengju was not in a hurry. The official road was flat and the trees were thick. The carriage was spacious and stable. They stopped along the way. By the time they reached Hangzhou, it was already June 20th. At this time, Hangzhou was bustling with merchants. The Shi family had built a courtyard at the foot of the pagoda mountain by the West Lake. It had already been cleaned up, so Shi Fengju ordered the carriage to go there directly. Wan Yang, you should rest well for the next 2 days. If you are bored, West Lake will be right outside. You can ask the servants to accompany you for a walk. After these busy days, I will accompany you for a walk. After settling down, Shi Fengju held her shoulders and smiled. Without those troublesome matters on the way, the two got along very well. Sangwon's mood was also much better. She nodded with a smile and said softly, Go ahead and do what you need to do. You don't have to worry about me. If there is a dinner, don't drink too much. Come back early at night. Don't worry. If I don't come back for dinner, I will send someone to tell you. If I come back late, don't wait for me. Rest early. Shifengju smiled and lowered his head to kiss her. Sangwon smiled and replied with an N. Then she said with some jealousy, there are many beauties in Jiangnan. They are elegant and refined. My husband, don't be dazzled by them and forget the way back. Shifengju laughed when he heard that. He pinched her cheek and said with a smile, okay, I don't dare to provoke you. If you get angry and treat me indifferently, wouldn't I feel bad? Although there are many beauties in Jiangnan, they are just scenery in my eyes. What I want is to go home early to accompany my wife. Sangwon laughed and felt a little embarrassed. She was slightly annoyed. Her words should be considered as jealousy, right? She did not know why she blurted it out. Chapter 258. For the next few days, Shifengju left early in the morning and returned late at night. As expected, he was extremely busy. Fortunately, the scenery here was quiet and secluded. During the day, Sangwon, Luya, and the others would linger around to enjoy the scenery. Occasionally, they would be accompanied by the housekeeper's wife to take a stroll in the city. Their days were not lonely. Hangzhou's prosperity was not something that Qingzhou could compare to. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, it would have been hard to imagine. Sangwon and Luya both praised it endlessly. One afternoon, Sangwon, Luya, the housekeeper's wife, Qinshi, and two other daughters-in-law went out to enjoy the lotus flowers. The green lotus leaves reached the sky, and the tender pink and white lotus flowers swayed among them. The red and green color was appropriate, and from time to time, they swayed with the wind. Their postures were very pleasing to the eye. Sangwon wore a hat and strolled leisurely with Luya, Qinshi, and the others in the lake, which was paved with bluestones and planted with weeping willows and peach blossoms. They enjoyed the beautiful scenery of the lake, and breathed in the fragrance of the lotus flowers brought by the wind. They felt relaxed and happy. Young mistress, you must be tired after walking for so long. Sit down and have a cup of tea. Qinshi saw a clean stone table and stone bench, and went forward with a smile. The view here was broad and quiet, so Sangwon didn't mind stopping to rest. She nodded with a smile and agreed. The two daughters-in-law hurriedly went forward and opened the bundle they carried with them. They took out a brocade cushion, and each of them took out tea and 3 or 4 plates of exquisite pastries from the food box. They carefully placed them on the stone table covered with a yellow embroidered tablecloth. Luya held the round fan with the ivory handle and gently fanned her from behind. Sangwon smiled and said, you must be tired. Find a place to sit down and rest. She then smiled at Luya and said, the shade of the trees here is cool, and the wind is blowing from the lake. You should save some energy. I know you like to play. If you want to stroll around nearby. Don't go too far. Luya giggled and agreed. She then smiled and said, Newbie will go and see if I can reach the lotus and pick 2 for Ma-am. As she said this, she closed her fan and threw it away. The two daughters-in-law excused themselves and sat down on the grass by the tree stump. Qinshi stood next to Sangwon and chatted with her. Sangwon felt that the hat was in the way, so she gently lifted a corner of the hat and swept it back, widening her field of vision. Suddenly, a woman's clear and melodious laughter came from the road. It was ostentatious and wanton. Sangwon couldn't help but turn her head to look. He saw a young woman with a slender waist, dressed in a cherry-red embroidered robe and a beige embroidered dress, and her hair was combed into 2 rings. She was talking and laughing with a man beside her, who was dressed in a white round collar robe. Behind them was a maidservant dressed in a snowy green vest and a white silk dress. The maidservant was carrying a food box in her hand. The two of them talked and laughed non-stop. Their footsteps were light, and their expressions were high. They were extremely close and happy. Qinshi saw that the woman's movements were frivolous, and her eyes were too nimble as they looked around. With one glance, she could tell that she came from a brothel. She couldn't help but frown. Sangwon also sensed that the woman didn't seem like a girl from a decent family. She only glanced at her before turning back. She picked up the teacup in front of her and carefully tasted it. Not far away, there was another stone table. The red-clothed woman said in a tender voice, After walking for half a day, I'm so tired. Let's also rest. She then pulled the man to sit down, not far from Sangwon. The man smiled and said, Okay, before sitting down. The woman then ordered the maidservant to pour tea. The maidservant quickly put down the food box, took out the tea, poured it, and handed it to her. Miss. The red-clothed woman took the tea. After drinking a mouthful, she frowned and spat it on the ground. She took out a handkerchief to wipe her mouth and glared at the maidservant in dissatisfaction. The tea is cold, how can I drink it? The maidservant didn't dare to make a sound. The man quickly smiled and said, If we walk a bit further, there will be a tea house. Just bear with it. The red-clothed woman was unwilling. She twisted her body and said in a tender voice, But I'm thirsty. I can't walk anymore. She turned her eyes and glanced at Sangwon. Seeing Sangwon's behavior, she then glanced at the meticulous Chinsher standing behind Sangwon. She disdainfully curled her lips. Suddenly, she laughed and whispered something to the man. The man frowned and unwillingly said in a low voice, Don't be mischievous. The red-clothed woman gave a tender snort and her charming face sank. She pouted her rosy cherry lips and said, How am I mischievous? Who doesn't have an inconvenient time when they go out? What's the big deal about borrowing it? Go quickly. Mischievous. The man was somewhat impatient. He flicked his sleeve and refused. The red-clothed woman instantly became angry. She turned around and said, You don't care about me and don't love me anymore. Back then, you said that you would treat me very well. I abandoned everything and left with you. Now in less than 2 years, you don't love me anymore. You won't do such a small thing for me. You even said that you have me in your heart and want to spend the rest of your life with me. I don't believe you. In the future, don't use these sweet words to coax me. I won't believe you anymore. The red-clothed woman acted like a spoiled child. She pulled on the man's sleeve and made a fuss. It was unknown what she asked the man to do for her, but the man refused. It could be seen that the man truly liked her. Seeing the situation, he hurriedly coaxed her and said all kinds of nice things. However, the red-clothed woman was unwilling to let him go. She insisted that he was using sweet words to coax her. Chinsher couldn't help but frown. She leaned over to Sangwon and said, Young mistress, how about we leave? Inwardly, Chinsher cursed her bad luck. She really didn't look at the almanac when she went out today. How could she meet such a shameless couple? They even let young mistress meet them. Sangwon could not bear to watch any longer, so she nodded her head and stood up. Chinsher hurriedly called for the 2 servants. She told one of them to pack up, and the other to call Luya. While the servant was packing, she saw the man walk over. The red-clothed woman was sizing up Sangwon with interest. The corner of her mouth lifted slightly. Young master, what brings you here? Chinsher hurriedly stood in front of Sangwon and said with a serious expression. That young master was stared at by Chinsher's hostile and vigilant gaze. His expression instantly became awkward and his face turned red. Just as he was mumbling and not knowing what to say, the red-clothed woman also walked over. However, she ignored Chinsher and gracefully bowed to Sangwon. Then she gracefully stood up and said with a smile, Young mistress, you are right. I am thirsty, but the tea is cold. I want to ask for a cup of tea. Is it convenient? Chinsher coldly said, There is a tea house not far ahead. Miss, you should go there. How could young mistress tea be given to others so easily? Hearing Chinsher's blunt refusal, the red-clothed woman did not get angry at all. Her eyes only flashed and she still ignored Chinsher. She smiled tenderly at Sangwon and said, Young mistress, you are dressed well. I didn't expect the servant to be so rude. The master hasn't spoken yet, but the servant has already spoken. I really don't know how young mistress can stand such a daring servant. I really feel that it is not worth it for young mistress. You, what nonsense are you talking about? Chinsher didn't expect the red-clothed woman to be so thick-skinned. She couldn't help but say, Who are you and who is my young mistress? How could she talk to you? If I were a few years younger, I would be too lazy to talk to you. Young mistress, let's go. Seeing that Luya had also returned, Qinshi said, who knew that the red-clothed woman seemed to have a grudge against them, and insisted on fighting. How could she be willing to let them go? This time she didn't ignore Qinshi. Instead, she went forward and grabbed her sleeve. With tears in her eyes, she said pitifully, "Sister-in-law, what do you mean by that? I have never offended sister-in-law. I only met you occasionally and saw that young mistress was kind enough to ask for a cup of tea. Sister-in-law, you don't stop mocking me. What do you mean by being a few years younger and being too lazy to talk to me? I am a good person. Why should sister-in-law insult me like this? Erlang, everyone looks down on me. Even a woman I met by chance dares to point at my nose and scold me. Erlang, am I really that unbearable?" The more the red-clothed woman spoke, the sadder she became. It was unknown whether she was speaking the truth or not. She began to sob. "Qing'er, don't cry. Don't cry." The man panicked and hurriedly coaxed her. "Qing'er, don't be sad. In my heart, you are the best. No one can compare to you. But everyone looks down on me. Why should I stay by your side and let others look down on you? Erlang, what's wrong with me? Why does everyone treat me like this? Erlang, I only want to live a good life with you. I want to help you raise your children and take care of your in-laws. But who gave me the chance?" The red-clothed woman turned and cried on the man. "Sister-in-law, my wife did not offend you. Why did you say such hurtful words? If sister-in-law doesn't apologize today, don't even think about leaving this place." The man saw that the beauty was crying and coaxed her. He ordered the maids to support her and said to Qinshi with a cold face. Qinshi's husband was in charge of many of the Shi family's businesses in Hangzhou. Because she was efficient, thoughtful and friendly, Shi Fengju specially ordered her to take care of the villa and accompany Sangwan. Usually at home, Qinshi was a respectable and well-respected mistress. When she saw the red-clothed woman's behavior, she was speechless with disgust. She wanted her to apologize to this woman? This was an insult to her. "Wife." Qinshi's eyes were sharp. She stared at the man and smiled coldly. She pointed at the red-clothed woman and said, "She is the official wife of the young master? Then the upbringing of the young master is not that good. You want me to apologize to this woman? Young master, I want to ask you, what do you mean?" The young master was instantly speechless. The red-clothed woman was indeed not his wife. However, he liked her and was infatuated with her. She acted coquettishly and asked him to treat her as his wife, so he could only agree. However, a fake was still a fake. There was no marriage certificate, no matchmaker, and no wedding ceremony. The red-clothed woman did not even have the qualifications to step into his home. She did not even have the qualifications to be his concubine, so how could she be his wife? Not to mention the young master, even the red-clothed woman could not help but feel a little guilty after hearing Qinshi's words. She continued to cry and make a fuss at the young master. Qinshi snorted coldly and personally supported Sangwan. "Young mistress, let's go. If you stay with this kind of person for too long, even young mistress's reputation will be tarnished." Sangwan did not speak anymore. She nodded, and the group left. The red-clothed woman did not continue to pester them. She continued to make a fuss at the young master. Chapter 259. Can you take me back to your home? Even if I don't have a status, I'll be satisfied as long as I can stay by your side. I don't want to be looked down upon by others. I don't want to. The sobbing of the red-clothed woman could be faintly heard, followed by the man's soft sigh. Qinshi spat in disgust and said in a small voice, "This kind of trash wants to enter someone else's home? It would be strange if they didn't cause a ruckus and a complete mess. This young master looks like a proper person, but who would have thought that he would fall for this and be entangled by a shameless slut? I don't know how angry and sad his parents are at home." Luya suddenly smiled and said, "These two people's accents are a bit like people from our Qingzhou." Sangwan suddenly stopped in her tracks and turned around to take a look. For a moment, she was a bit startled. Although she had only taken a few glances, when she thought about it now, that man's appearance was somewhat similar to Shi Fengju's. At this moment, Looking at him from a distance, his figure was also similar. Could it be that this man was actually Shi Fengming, who had gone south? That woman called him second young master. And what did he call that woman? Jing. Sangwon's heart skipped a beat. Young mistress, if you're tired, let's go back. Qin Shi said when she saw that Sangwon had stopped in her tracks. At this moment, how could Sangwon still be in the mood to play? Hearing this, she nodded and said, Madam Qin, these two people are too rude. Have the two sisters-in-law follow them and see where they're staying. Since she had encountered them, regardless of whether they were Sangwon or not, she had to get to the bottom of this. Yes, young mistress. Qin Shi straightforwardly agreed. These two people were truly hateful. It was no wonder that even the gentle and amiable young mistress was angry. Returning to the holiday home, Sangwon called for the housekeeper and asked about Shi Fengju's whereabouts today. When will he be back? These days, Shi Fengju had been busy communicating with people at the Chamber of Commerce, so Sangwon had never taken the initiative to ask. Although the housekeeper was slightly surprised when he heard this, he soon felt relieved. He thought to himself that it was no wonder that the young mistress could not keep her cool. The young master's family was rich, and he was handsome. At this time of the year, Hangzhou was the place where the courtesans of Jiangnan gathered. Although it had only been a short 8 days, it had led to many beautiful stories. It was normal for the young mistress to worry. The housekeeper answered truthfully with a smile, I don't know. It was better not to get involved in the matters of the masters if she could. Who knew that Sangwon had no intention of letting him off so easily? She immediately said, then send someone to inquire about it personally. Tell eldest young master that I have an important matter to discuss with him. If he is not busy, then come back early today. The butler had no choice but to leave. Sangwon originally thought that even if Shi Fengju came back early, it would be around dinner time. Unexpectedly, he came back not long after. He walked in with a smile and asked, Wan Nyang, are you looking for me for something? Sangwon saw that he came back so quickly and felt a little apologetic. She hurriedly stood up and greeted him with a smile. There is a small matter. Actually, we can talk about it later. Did I delay your business? Shi Fengju smiled and shook his head. He took her to sit down with him and said, It's rare for you to look for me. I also took a break for half a day. Sangwon saw that he was waiting for her to speak. Just as she was about to speak, she hesitated. She was afraid that she had guessed wrong. That, your second brother also went south? Do you think it's possible that he's also in Hangzhou? Shi Fengju's eyes flashed. It's also possible. Second brother likes lively places, so he might come here. But he knows that I'll definitely come back. In other words, if he didn't want him to find him, he would most likely avoid him. Does the woman who left with him have the word Qing in her name? Sangwon asked again. Shi Fengju frowned slightly when he heard her question. Her name is Su Qing. She's not a decent woman. Why did Wan Yang mention her? Sangwon felt more confident now. She told him what she had seen on the West Lake embankment today. Shi Fengju's face immediately turned cold. That woman's behavior was so frivolous. How dare she come forward and pester you in broad daylight? Sangwon's heart warmed when she saw that he was so concerned about her. She smiled softly and said, Who would expect such a thing to happen on the road? At that time, Madam Qin was negotiating with her. I didn't talk to her. Shi Fengju's expression eased a little. Madam Qin is steady and capable. She didn't neglect her duty. I've already asked someone to secretly follow them, but I'm not sure if it's second young master. You see. Shi Fengju pondered for a moment and smiled. Let's talk about it when the people who followed them come back. I'll know when I see it for myself. If second young master can really bring second young master back this time, it'll be a big deal. Sangwon suddenly thought of the words that came with the wind after they left. She thought for a while and said with a smile, Su Qing seems to want to go back to the residence. If second young master insists on bringing her along, will you agree? How is that possible? Shi Fengju objected without thinking and said, If that woman could enter the residence, second young master wouldn't have run away in a fit of pique. Putting aside the fact that women in brothels have a bad reputation, the rules set by my great-grandfather can't be violated. After so long, is second young master still thinking about that woman? Sangwon thought for a while. Not only was he thinking about her, but he was also obedient to her. He could even order her to ask for tea, and that young master actually did it. You'll know when the time comes, Sangwon said with a smile. I don't know when they will come back to report. Do you still want to go out? Shi Fengju shook his head and said with a smile. How can I be in the mood to go out and do other things? I'll just wait. Unexpectedly, the people who followed them didn't come back in the evening. Sangwon sighed and ordered the servants to serve dinner. The two of them ate. After a while, the two women hurried back to report. Why were they gone for so long? You didn't lose them, did you? Sangwon hurriedly asked when she heard that they were back. Both of them looked very tired. When they heard Sangwon's question, one of them quickly replied with a smile. Young mistress, don't worry. We're familiar with every part of Hangzhou. How could we lose them? It's just that young master and that woman are too good at shopping. After that, they went to the tea house to sit for a while, then strolled around the city's business district for half a day. After that, they had dinner at Farong restaurant. Only then did they call for a carriage to return to their residence. We didn't dare to leave, so we followed them the whole time. It's been hard on you too. When we return, go to the accounts room and get 5 taels each. Sangwon nodded and smiled. She quickly asked where they lived. The two women saw that young master's face was slightly gloomy and he was sitting silently at the side. They knew that young mistress must have already complained. Young master must be very angry and wanted to rush over to avenge young mistress. They quickly told him the address. It was a small courtyard at South Chuilu Lane, Guanglin Street. Wanyang, you and I will go over now. You rest first. Shi Fengju immediately stood up. Be careful on the road. Sangwon stood up to send him off. Seeing that his complexion wasn't too good, she couldn't help but gently advise. If it's true, you should talk to him nicely. Don't make things unpleasant. Shi Fengju smiled and caressed her face. Don't worry. I've caught him this time. I definitely won't let him escape. Sangwon smiled and watched him leave. The two women looked at each other and secretly envied him in their hearts. Young master is really good to young mistress. It's already so late, but he still wants to personally avenge young mistress. Shi Fengju rushed over with Chang Huan and 4 other servants, as well as 2 astute women. They easily found the place. Without waiting for Chang Huan to dismount, Shi Fengju jumped down from the carriage and strode forward to personally knock on the door. His rough and messy voice revealed his anger and impatience. Who is it? So unruly. Knock on your grandpa's door. An impatient voice could be heard coming from the courtyard, and the door was opened with a whoosh. The servant in green who opened the door widened his eyes, and was about to scold when he saw Shi Fengju's cold expression under the light. He was stunned and stammered, "CC young master." Humph. Shi Fengju coldly glanced at him and pushed him to the side. Get out of the way. Young master. Shi Lu immediately became anxious. He wanted to go forward and stop him, but he was a little hesitant. Before he could hesitate, Shi Fengju had already walked in with his men. Chang Huan pulled him and whispered, Brother, are you stupid? Eldest young master is here, and you still want to report to him? If you can persuade second young master to return home, you will be rewarded. If you continue to be an accomplice, second old master and second madam will beat you to death. Shi Lu's face turned ghastly pale. This small courtyard had 2 entrances. It wasn't big, but it was quiet and secluded. Shi Fengju ordered the 2 of them to guard the drooping flower door in the middle. Then he led the 2 servants in with light footsteps. There was light in the room ahead, and the 2 figures reflected on the window paper swayed gently. They could clearly see that they were a man and a woman. Another figure could be faintly seen at the side, who should be a servant girl. Shi Fengju gestured for the 2 servants to stop in the corridor. He walked forward step by step and stood outside the window. The voices inside could be heard clearly. Second young master, have you thought about what I said today? Su Qing asked in a delicate voice. Her figure swayed slightly as she shook Shi Fengming's arm. Shi Fengming smiled perfunctorily and said vaguely, Let's talk about this tomorrow. Let's talk about it tomorrow, okay? Qing. Aren't you tired after a day of shopping? Ask Xiao Lian to draw water for a bath. Let's rest early. No. Su Qing snorted and said. Is there a need to think about this? You obviously look down on me and refuse to bring me back to your house. I don't want any status. Really, I'm satisfied as long as I can be with you. It's been so long, and your parents' anger should have subsided. Let's go back and beg them. You're their biological son. How can they bear to reject you? Second young master, you're a noble person, but you're leading a wandering life for me. How can I live with that? Your parents must be worried at home every day and miss you every night. My sins are getting worse. Let's go back, okay? We can't live like this for the rest of our lives. Qing'a, you're too kind. Shi Fengming sighed softly and said, It's hard for you to think so thoroughly for me. However, you don't know my father's temper. He has never liked me. If we go back, he won't let us off easily. There are so many people in the residence. It will be impossible for us to escape then. If he wants to do anything to you... Chapter 260. Don't say it. Su Qing gently covered his mouth and blinked her eyes. Her voice was as gentle as a feather as she said, You will definitely protect me, right? Yes. Shi Fengming held her hand and kissed it. He looked at the woman in front of him as if she was the most precious treasure in the world. But I'm afraid that I won't be able to protect you and make you suffer. Su Qing raised her eyebrows and chuckled. Even a vicious tiger won't eat its cubs. If you threaten them with your death, they will definitely accept me on account of our mutual love. If they look down on my background, they can change my identity. As long as they can accept me, anything is fine. This. Shi Fengming was slightly startled. Shi Fengju couldn't help but clench his fists tightly. This woman was indeed despicable. How could she instigate this silly boy to threaten his parents with his death? How could she say that? Second young master. When Su Qing saw that he was still hesitating, she immediately acted coquettishly and shook him. In the end, you just despise me and think that I'm not worthy of entering the Shi family. You even said that you only like and dote on me in this lifetime. I think it's all fake. When you get tired of playing with me, you will secretly pack up and run away. What can I do to you even if I cry my eyes out? The more Su Qing thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. She couldn't help but sob. When she cried, Shi Fengming's heart ached. He kept coaxing her in a low voice. How could Su Qing listen to him? She became even more unforgiving. Shi Fengju couldn't take it anymore. He walked heavily and knocked on the door. The crying and coaxing in the room stopped abruptly. Who is it? Shi Fengming was surprised. Shi Fengming naturally couldn't visit his relatives and friends after eloping with Su Qing. The two of them had been staying here for more than 10 days, but no one had ever visited them. Furthermore, it was nighttime and the knocking on the door was so impolite. Shi Fengming subconsciously felt that something was amiss. He stopped Xiao Lian and got up to open the door. When he saw Shi Fengju standing at the door, he was dumbfounded. Shi Fengju smiled. Why? Aren't you going to invite me in? Big brother. Shi Fengming's heart was in a mess. He smiled stiffly and moved aside. Shi Fengju glanced at him and stepped inside. Isn't this eldest young master? Qing greets eldest young master. Su Qing and Xiao Lian also came over. When Su Qing saw Shi Fengju, she was overjoyed at the turn of events and hurriedly greeted him with a smile. He hurriedly smiled and said, I didn't know that eldest young master would visit my humble abode, so I didn't prepare anything. The place is simple and crude, please forgive me, eldest young master. The moment Su Qing opened her mouth, she treated herself as the mistress of the house. Shi Fengju dodged to the side, refusing to accept her greeting. He coldly glanced at her. Honoring my humble abode? I'm here to see my brother. What does that have to do with you? Did you rent this courtyard or did you buy it? You sure talk big. Su Qing's face instantly turned ugly. She forced a smile and glanced at Shi Fengming with an aggrieved look. How could Shi Fengming bear to see her suffer? He immediately felt unhappy in his heart. Eldest brother, Shi Fengju said coldly. Ask her to go out. I have something to say to you. Eldest brother Qing is the person I like. If you have something to say, you can say it in front of her. Su Qing still wanted to curry favor with Shi Fengju to speak up for her. When she saw that the two brothers were about to fall out, she hurriedly smiled and said, "You guys talk, you guys talk. I'll go make some tea." After saying that, she curtsied again and went out with Xiao Lian. When the two brothers sat down in the room, there was an awkward silence. "Eldest brother, how did you find this place?" Shi Fengming subconsciously brushed his robe and forced a smile as he asked. Shi Fengju said with a faint smile, "Don't you want me to find you? You clearly know that I will definitely be in Hangzhou at this time. Our family has a lot of business in Hangzhou, yet you came at this time. I thought that you were waiting for me to find you." Shi Fengming was stunned. Some thoughts seemed to be on the verge of coming out of his mind, but he was just a little bit away from it. He subconsciously didn't want to think about it. Shi Fengju seemed to be able to see through his thoughts better than him. He raised his eyebrows and said with a faint smile, "I think that if it were up to you, you wouldn't have come to Hangzhou at this time, right? It's Su Qing's idea, isn't it?" Shi Fengming felt a little unnatural, but he could only nod and say, "Qing'er said that she wanted to see how lively the Jiangnan Chamber of Commerce is and what novel products they have, so we came," Shi Fengju said again. "Really? I thought that she wanted to meet me so that you could go back to Qingzhou with me. You don't have to deny it. I heard it from the door just now." Shi Fengming's eyes immediately lit up. "Eldest brother, I think you should give up." Shi Fengju interrupted him rudely. "Don't you know second uncle and second aunt's temper? Besides, this woman isn't easy to deal with. If she really enters the residence, there will be chaos. Qing'er won't do that. She's not that kind of woman." Shi Fengming immediately retorted like an angry cat when he heard Shi Fengju belittling Su Qing'er. Shi Fengju said coldly, "She instigated you to threaten second uncle and second aunt with death. Is she a good woman? Would a good woman say such things?" Shi Fengming was at a loss for words. After a while he said, "If father and mother can't tolerate her, do you want her to wait for death?" She said that out of helplessness. "There's no need to bring tea in." Su Qing'er was instantly annoyed. This old maid had gone too far. "This seems to be my place. Don't you think you've gone overboard? Is the Shi family so unruly?" The two old maids sneered. One of them said coldly, "It's not up to you to say whether the Shi family has rules or not. Who are you? Are you qualified to say that? Is this your place? Did you buy it or rent it? Who are you to our second young master? How dare you say such things?" Su Qing'er was instantly furious. She couldn't do anything about it. If she seriously quarreled with these two old maids, her image would be ruined. Then, she could forget about winning Shi Fengju's favor. If she wanted to barge in, it would be fine if the manservants were guarding the door. After all, she was Shi Fengming's woman. None of the manservants dared to touch her. However, these two old maids obviously wouldn't let her have her way. "I was rude. Please don't blame me." Su Qing'er forcibly suppressed her anger. Instead, she bent her knees slightly and bowed to the two of them. When she saw that they were still pulling long faces and didn't even bat an eyelid or look at her, she knew that there was no turning back. She forced a smile and turned to leave with Xiao Lian. In the room, Shi Fengju said after a long while, "I didn't expect second brother to be such a hard-hearted person. Don't you care about second uncle and second aunt at all?" Shi Fengming looked pained and sighed. "Of course, father and mother are living well in the residence. I'm an unfilial son. However, if they can accept Qing'er, what are you saying?" Shi Fengju was instantly furious and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "If they accept this woman, you'll be filial to them. If they don't, you won't recognize them as your parents? If you really think this way, you're really an unfilial son. Second aunt misses you and misses you every day. She's always depressed and weeps. Especially during the new year, the maids and old maids of the second branch are all trembling with fear. They're afraid that second aunt will take her anger out on them. Her temper is getting worse and worse. You're the only person she doesn't miss for a moment. Also, second uncle. Although he scolds you and scolds you, doesn't he miss you? Every time there's news about you, Regardless of whether it's true or not, the expectant look on their faces is unbearable. In the past, second uncle liked to go out of the residence and play with the old and young masters in Qingzhou City. Now he doesn't like to go out anymore. He only fiddles around in his courtyard every day, because he misses you. How can you be so cruel to them because of Su Qing? Chapter 261. Big Brother. Shi Fengming felt sad when he heard that, but he smiled bitterly and said, I know I've let father and mother down, but I really like Qing. She's a good girl, and it's not her fault that she has led a life of prostitution. Big Brother, can you help us? If you help us, I'll be grateful to you for the rest of my life. My parents won't have to worry about us anymore. Shi Fengju sighed and said, Why are you so stubborn? I know you don't like to hear that, but Su Qing isn't a good person. I really don't understand why you're so foolish. I know you're biased against her. How could Shi Fengming listen to that? However, he didn't get angry at Shi Fengju, but his stubbornness made Shi Fengju even angrier. He was angry, and he didn't know how to vent it. Big Brother, if the residents can't accept Qing, I won't go back with you. Shi Fengming was slightly disappointed when he saw his cold face. It's my fault for making father and mother worry. I'll write a letter. Big Brother, help me bring it back. That way father and mother can rest assured. If you really miss them, then go back quickly. Shi Fengju said faintly. If you want to send a letter, ask someone to send it. I won't help you bring it back. Otherwise, won't second uncle and second aunt blame me for not bringing you back? Shi Fengming was happy when he heard that. Big Brother, you won't make things difficult for me? Shi Fengju snorted and said, Maybe. I can't watch you sink into a quagmire. Think about it carefully. Have you been accommodating that woman for the past 2 years? Or has she done anything for you? You say she treats you well, but I can't tell. When I listened outside the door for a while, I only heard retreating in order to advance. I only heard that you were scheming. Shi Fengju didn't care if he came back to his senses or not. He got up and said, It's getting late. I should leave. I'm staying in the villa at the foot of the Pagoda Mountain. If you've thought it through, come and find me. Shi Fengming didn't say anything. He got up and sent him out. When he saw him get into the carriage, he said, Big Brother, take care. Shi Fengju turned back indifferently. His gaze swept past Su Qing, who had appeared out of nowhere, and was smiling frivolously beside Shi Fengming. His expression instantly turned cold. Chang Huan, take 2 men with you and keep an eye on this place. If there's any movement, report it immediately. If second young master disappears again, you'll be punished. Shi Fengju naturally wouldn't let Shi Fengming off easily. In the house, Su Qing held Shi Fengming's arm gently and quietly. She smiled faintly and sat down with him in the house. Then she personally served him a cup of tea. Eldest young master and second young master are really close. You've talked for so long. Although eldest young master looks cold, he has a good heart and has never made things difficult for us. The next time you see him, you must be more courteous. Shi Fengming held her hand and smiled. He thought to himself, You're still praising him? He can't wait to make you disappear immediately. When Su Qing saw that Shi Fengming didn't reply to her, she could only understand and ask with a smile. What did eldest young master say to second young master? Is it convenient for second young master to tell me? Shi Fengming didn't answer her. Instead, he stared at her and suddenly became extremely serious. Let's leave Hangzhou tomorrow, okay? We'll find a simple town, buy a house and settle down. Then, we'll open a small shop and lead a good life in the future. After 3 or 4 years, we'll return to the residence when we have children. I believe that father and mother will definitely accept us for the sake of the children. Su Qing was a little dumbfounded. Her goal had always been the Shi family, not a simple town. Although she had eloped with Shi Fengming back then, she had merely retreated in order to advance. She didn't believe that second Lord Shi and second Madam Shi would really bear to part with their son. Their son was willing to run away from home and suffer outside for her. As parents, how could they not worry and feel heartache for him? Over the past 2 years, Shi Fengming had wanted to write a letter back to the Shi family several times. However, she had dismissed the idea with the reason that she couldn't be with him anymore if her whereabouts were exposed. She wanted them to be on tenterhooks and be unable to eat or sleep in peace. After 2 years of suffering, she didn't believe that they would still have a heart of stone. More importantly, the 80,000 taels of silver that Shi Fengming had brought out were about to be spent. Was he really going to settle down in a small town and even open a shop? She would live a simple life and worry about earning a few copper coins every day. She might even have to think about the price of a meal in a restaurant. It was absolutely impossible for Su Qing to live such a life. A beautiful woman would age easily and her youth would fade away. Every day, her youth and exquisite appearance would be worn away. What else could she use to retain Shi Fengming's heart? As long as she entered the Shi family and became a concubine, wouldn't glory, splendor, and wealth be easily obtained? Since Shi Fengming doted on her so much, she naturally wouldn't feel wronged. That kind of life was what she yearned for. It wasn't the present, nor was it the future plan that Shi Fengming had mentioned. Qing, are you unwilling? Shi Fengming immediately became nervous. He wanted to prove to Shi Fengju that his judgment wasn't wrong and that Qing truly loved him. Therefore, she couldn't refuse. Why wouldn't I be willing? Su Qing knew that she had been in a daze for a long time. She quickly smiled and said gently, "As long as I'm with you, I'm willing to go anywhere." But do you really not miss your parents at all? It's been 3 to 4 years. Just these 2 years alone. When I think about how your parents have been looking forward to you and missing you every day in the residence, I already feel so guilty. In another 3 to 4 years. Second Lang, this won't do. I can't bear such suffering. Su Qing tried hard to think about Shi Fengju's cold and disdainful gaze and the arrogant and rude attitude of the 2 old maids. She felt wronged and tears immediately streamed down her face. Qing, Shi Fengming hugged her in a fluster. Qing, don't cry. Qing, what do you want me to do? Your eldest brother will definitely persuade you to go home. Second Lang, let's just go back with him. As long as he can put in a few good words for us, you're your parents' son after all. They will definitely forgive us. Shi Fengming's lips moved. Firstly, he did miss his parents. Secondly, he couldn't resist Su Qing's coaxing and pestering. In the end, he sighed and said, "If eldest brother can speak up for us, we will naturally have more confidence. But given eldest brother's temper, he has a deep prejudice against you. How can he speak up so easily?" Su Qing hurriedly said, "You also said that he has a prejudice against me. That's because he doesn't understand me. If he understood me, he definitely wouldn't be like this. Second Lang, let's take the initiative. He can't be heartless, right?" Shi Fengming couldn't help but feel moved. That's right. Eldest brother is like this because he doesn't understand Qing. As long as he understands her, he will definitely see the good in her. Then let's give it a try. Let's go to the villa at the foot of the Pagoda Mountain to meet eldest brother tomorrow. Shi Fengming nodded. Su Qing was overjoyed and hurriedly nodded. She was a little nervous for a moment. She asked him what kind of clothes she should wear, what kind of hairstyle she should wear, what kind of jewelry she should wear, how she should behave when she arrived, and also asked about Shi Fengju's temperament and preferences. When Shi Fengming saw her looking at him with sparkling eyes and her nervous, cautious, and expectant expression, he felt that she was extremely pitiful and cute. His heart instantly became gentle. He smiled and sighed. Eldest brother is actually quite easygoing. You don't have to be too nervous. Just do what you usually do tomorrow. Just stay by my side. Don't worry. I will protect you. Okay. Second Lang, I know that you treat me the best. Su Qing smiled and leaned on him softly. The next day, the 2 of them finally packed up and went out at noon. Shi Fengming immediately made up his mind to see Shi Fengju and ask for his help. He immediately got up early in the morning and urged Su Qing to hurry up. However, Su Qing smiled and took her time. She even kept telling him to calm down and not be impatient. Su Qing thought that Shi Fengju would definitely go to the Chamber of Commerce to talk to someone. She would only go to his place after he went out. If Shi Fengju didn't go out and flatly refused to let her in, wouldn't there be no leeway to turn things around? If Shi Fengju wasn't around, Shi Fengming would be the master, and the people in the villa wouldn't dare to go against him. She was still confident in Shi Fengming. When they arrived at the Shi family's villa at the foot of the pagoda mountain, Shi Fengming was a little absent-minded as he looked at the pink walls, red doors, and vaguely visible roof ridges, and eaves that were hidden in the quiet shade. He had come here with Shi Fengju 3 years ago. He didn't expect to come here again today with the status of a half-master and half-guest. He went forward and knocked on the door. The old servant who opened the door was stunned. He actually recognized Shi Fengming and stammered, "Isn't this second young master?" A sense of familiarity rose in Shi Fengming's heart. He raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "It's me. Heh, you still recognize me. Although the old slave is old, my memory is still good. Second young master, please come in. Eldest young master went out in the morning, and will probably only be back at night. Oh, young mistress is here. The old slave will get someone to report to young mistress." The old servant smiled and invited him in. When his gaze landed on Su Qing, he was slightly stunned. Su Qing, had been in the brothel since she was young. When she saw men, regardless of their age, she subconsciously showed a flirtatious expression. She immediately smiled gently at the old servant, and looked at him with watery eyes. She thought that she was smiling reservedly, but it made the old servant stiffen and he looked away unnaturally. The old servant wanted to ask if she was the second young mistress, but he stopped when he saw this. Since the second young master didn't take the initiative to say it, she obviously wasn't the second young mistress. Thus he pretended not to see it. Shi Fengming's eyes lit up and he said happily, "Eldest brother is married? When did this happen?" The old servant was stunned when he heard this. He looked at Shi Fengming in a daze and forgot about their seniority. When had the eldest young master gotten married? How could the second young master not know? He was in charge of guarding the door in this villa, so he naturally didn't know what was going on in the Shi family's residence. Shi Fengming reacted quickly and blushed. He smiled awkwardly and said, "I left home for 2 years because of something. I really don't know when eldest brother got married. Which family is my sister-in-law from? Is her surname Gu or Sang?" The old servant revealed an enlightened expression and hurriedly said with a smile, "I see. Young mistress is quite nice, but I don't know her surname, old slave." Shi Fengming thought about it and agreed. He smiled and didn't ask further. He followed the servant girl who led the way and waited in the parlor. Chapter 262. After a while, the butler came and greeted them with a smile. He served them tea and said, "Eldest young master hasn't returned. The old slave has already sent someone to report to young mistress. Did second young master bring any luggage? Do you want to settle down and rest first?" Shi Fengming smiled and said, "I have another place to stay. You don't have to worry about it. Since eldest brother hasn't returned, I'll wait. You don't have to be so polite. It won't be too late to see you at night." Regardless of whether this sister-in-law was the Gu family's cousin or the Sang family's daughter, Shi Fengming didn't want to meet her alone as he felt awkward. Unexpectedly, Su Qing, elbowed him and said with a smile, "Actually, we're not outsiders. Young mistress must be bored. If you're willing, we can pay you a visit and chat with you to relieve your boredom." Su Qing, was extremely regretful. If she had expected that it would be so easy to enter the courtyard, she would have definitely moved her luggage here. Shi Fengming didn't know how to think. Why did he reject her? If she stayed here, she would have more opportunities to meet Shi Fengju and his wife, right? Upon hearing Su Qing's words, Shi Fengming smiled at the butler and said, "Qing is right. We're all family, so there's no need to avoid taboos. Go and report to eldest sister-in-law." The butler glanced at him strangely before bowing and leaving. "Why do you want to see eldest sister-in-law?" Shi Fengming frowned slightly. Su Qing chuckled and said, "You're really brainless. Eldest young master even brought young mistress along when he went out. It can be seen that he cares about her. Young mistress is also a woman, so she must be able to understand our difficulties. If she puts in a good word for us in front of eldest young master, won't it save us a lot of trouble?" Yes, yes. Shi Fengming was delighted. You're so considerate. However, if eldest sister-in-law has a bad temper and says something unpleasant, don't take it to heart. Su Qing'er shook her head. Why would I take it to heart? Now that we're the ones asking for help, we have to be humble. I understand this principle. Shi Fengming sighed in his heart. It's been hard on you. Su Qing'er smiled and shook her head. What? Second young master is here. Sangwon was shocked. Wasn't Shi Fengming afraid that he wouldn't be able to hide in time? Why would he take the initiative to come here? Yes, second young master brought a lady. He said that if young mistress is free, he would like to pay you a visit first. The housekeeper didn't know how to address Su Qing'er, so he said vaguely. Miss. Sangwon immediately understood and sighed inwardly. It was no wonder that Shi Fengming had taken the initiative to visit. It must have been Su Qing'er's idea. Su Qing'er was determined to enter the Shi family. Sangwon was in the same boat as Zhou Jingyi. She did not have a good impression of this woman who seduced other people's husbands and eloped with them. When she saw her at the West Lake yesterday, she was disgusted with her. How could she meet her now? She thought about how angry Shi Fengju had been when he came back last night. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot. If he knew that Shi Fengju had brought Su Qing'er here, she wondered how angry he would be. Why didn't the gatekeeper say anything before letting her in? On second thought, she couldn't blame him. Shi Fengming was the master, so how could the gatekeeper stop him? Just say that the weather is hot and I'm not feeling well, so I won't see them. Entertain them well and quickly send someone to inform young master. Sangwon sighed and instructed. Since they had already come in, how could she force them out? Shi Fengming was her brother-in-law after all. As his sister-in-law, she couldn't do such a thing. The housekeeper went out and sent someone to invite Shi Fengju back, while personally reporting to Shi Fengming. Initially, Shi Fengming didn't care whether he met Sangwon or not. However, after hearing what Sangwon said, he was more anxious to meet her than Su Qing'er. When he heard the housekeeper's words, he was disappointed and asked, Is my sister-in-law's surname Gu? If it was Gu Fengzi, she could be considered an old acquaintance. If he insisted on meeting her, Gu Fengzi wouldn't be able to refuse. If it was the young lady of the Sang family, then it would be better to wait for his eldest brother to come back. The housekeeper lowered his head and said, Second young master, don't you know that young mistress's surname is Sang? So it's the young lady of the Sang family. Shi Fengming nodded and waved his hand. All right, we'll wait here. You can go and do your work. The housekeeper bowed and left, leaving a maid to serve them. Su Qing'er looked outside and said with a smile, The scenery in this manor is pretty good. Second young master, it's boring to just wait. Why don't we go out for a walk? Shi Fengming was feeling bored, so he nodded and stood up with Su Qing'er. Seeing that the maid wanted to follow them, Shi Fengming said impatiently, I know the way. Don't follow me. The maid agreed respectfully and stopped in her tracks. Xiao Lian also stayed in the hall. Shi Fengming led Su Qing'er to the garden and pointed out various places to her along the way. Su Qing'er saw that it was just a side courtyard. The Shi family might not even stay here for a few days throughout the year. But there was a scenery with every step. It was exquisitely carved and luxuriant. The exotic flowers and plants complemented each other with the lake tie stones of different shapes. They dotted the pavilions, terraces and pavilions, winding corridors and caves, making them look exceptionally secluded and exquisite. From time to time, she could see running water flowing. It was either a trickle of clear water or a meandering pool. There were water lilies and goldfish swimming leisurely in the pool. A pair of mandarin ducks with bright feathers suddenly appeared among the green aquatic plants on the shore, adding some liveliness to the quiet and secluded scenery. After passing through a door, there was a Chinese wisteria hedge in front of them. It was the season for Chinese wisteria flowers to bloom. Strings of purple flowers, which were more than a foot long, bloomed in layers. They were beautiful and enchanting. They hung among the green branches and looked gorgeous and eye-catching. It's really beautiful here. Su Qing'er's eyes lit up. She lifted the corner of her skirt and ran toward the hedge. She clicked her tongue and couldn't help but reach out to pluck the flowers. Shi Fengming stood on the path and looked at her with a smile. Hey, stop. Hey, who are you? Who are you in front of the Chinese wisteria? Do you think you can casually pluck the flowers here? Su Qing, Er's hand had just touched the flowers when she heard a woman's voice in front of her. Su Qing, felt disappointed. She plucked the string of purple flowers in a fit of pique, and raised her head to sneer provocatively at the woman. A rough old woman who was in charge of the garden dared to shout at her. What kind of person would she be if she took this lying down? Unexpectedly, the sneer on Su Qing, Er's face stiffened before it could be fully displayed. The woman also recognized her. Her expression changed and she exclaimed, "It's you." It was Madame Qin. Sangwon liked this Chinese wisteria patch, so Madame Qin had instructed people to take care of it carefully. When she happened to pass by today and saw that someone dared to reach out to pluck the flowers, she shouted at her to stop. She hadn't expected that enemies would meet on a narrow road. "It's you." Su Qing, naturally recognized her and was stunned for a moment. Madame Qin shouted angrily, "You indecent woman! Why are you in our residence? Our young mistress likes this Chinese wisteria. You're too daring." "What's going on?" Shi Fengming hurried over when he saw the dispute. When he heard Madame Qin's rude words, he couldn't help but frown and reprimand her. "What do you do in this residence? Watch your mouth. Why are you here?" Shi Fengming also saw Madame Qin's appearance. Madame Qin also sensed that something was wrong and said to Shi Fengming, "Is this young master a friend of our young master? This woman really doesn't know what's good for her. How can she casually pluck the flowers here? She's really unruly." When Shi Fengming saw Su Qing, Er's aggrieved and embarrassed expression, he couldn't help but get angry. "Shut up. Isn't it just a few flowers? What's the big deal about plucking them?" As Shi Fengming spoke, he deliberately plucked the flowers in front of Madame Qin. "How dare you?" Madame Qin wasn't someone to be trifled with. When she saw Shi Fengming's actions, she was furious. She stepped forward and slapped his hand away, blocking him. She sneered and said, "Young master, you look dignified, cultured, and elegant. I thought you were a person with moral upbringing. I didn't expect that I was wrong. How can a person with such a woman be a good person? Didn't anyone teach you to follow the rules when you're a guest in someone else's residence?" "Outrageous," Su Qing said angrily. "Guest? Open your eyes and look carefully. Second young master isn't a guest. He's the master of this residence. So what if he plucked all the flowers, let alone plucking them? How dare a servant like you talk back to him? I think you're the one who doesn't know the rules." Madame Qin laughed coldly as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. "Master? Ever since my young master and young mistress came, I've been serving in this residence. You're the masters. Who are my young master and young mistress? If someone came, how could my young master and young mistress not say anything?" Su Qing, wanted to continue speaking, but Shi Fengming couldn't bear to listen anymore. He tugged at her and said hatefully, "All right, Qing, don't lower yourself to her level. Let's go." Shi Fengming's face flushed red, and he felt extremely embarrassed. He had never suffered such humiliation in his life. However, at this moment, they were in their own courtyard, and their servants were ridiculing them with such cold words. He suddenly had a feeling that he wasn't a member of the Shi family anymore. The Shi family didn't recognize him anymore. Realizing this, he felt a little sad in his heart. "At least you're sensible," Madame Qin snorted. "Know the rules. Don't treat yourself as an outsider wherever you go. You." Shi Fengming felt that her words were stinging, and he glared at her hatefully. Madame Qin didn't show any weakness and glared back at him with a sneer. Su Qing, couldn't help but quarrel with the two women again. "Madame Qin, what's going on?" When they started quarreling, someone had already reported to Sangwon. When Sangwon heard this, she knew that things weren't going well. She couldn't hide even if she wanted to, so she could only rush over with some people. She heard Su Qing, and Madame Qin quarreling fiercely while Shi Fengming stood at the side with his hands behind his back without saying a word. "Young mistress." Although Madame Qin was overbearing, Su Qing used to be the top hostess in the brothel, so her eloquence wasn't just for show. When she used all her strength, She was as sharp and mean as she could be. Madame Qin had never seen such a situation and couldn't handle it. However, she refused to admit defeat and continued to quarrel with Su Qing. When she heard Sangwon's words, she quickly went over to support her. Her eyes almost turned red. You're tuning into the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.